race unfolds, if anybody takes advantage of that situation, how it unfolds. But at the moment, we're ready to go on the formation lap.
Yes, that's a 1 minute stop and go, so that includes plus navigating down the pit lane. They'll have to switch the engine off, otherwise it'll boil itself in that 1 minute where they're stationary in front of their pits. So that obviously is a massive penalty, but they're going to have to find out where the track is at. It's an unknown. There's so much less rubber down than normal because it's been raining, because it's wall-to-wall action on this racetrack with all sorts of formula, with hard racing tyres or even road tyres. Plus, of course, now they're having to get through the entire Grand Prix on one set of tyres. As you stated earlier on, James, they're doing less laps on the track anyway as Formula One cars, and they're putting far less rubber down. So I think the drivers are going to have to really adapt themselves around their handling and their car in the early stages of Grand Prix. It's no good getting on the radio and bitching to the team.
Saw Michael Schumacher there at the tail of the field. An unaccustomed place for him, although towards the end of last year he did get himself out of position a couple of times, but by then the championship was won. So this is our first look then at the Albert Park circuit for this year. It's not changed at all really from last year to this. And as you can see, corporate boxes and grandstands all the way around the circuit. I took a wander around during practice on Friday, and really you do have some fantastic spectator positions. They can almost reach out and touch the cars in certain places. The entry to the fast chicane, turns 10 and 11, is extraordinary. The corporate boxes right above them.
Left the grid. Now a slow lap, safe fuel, warm up the brakes and set your brake balance.
A little bit of information there for Mark Webber, team radio just coming through to him, just telling him what to do. You can see Webber there just warming up the tyres. Getting heat into the tyres is definitely going to be a big issue here this afternoon. This track, a bit of a point and squirt circuit, not any particularly fast or exciting corners. 16 turns in all. Top speed around about 185 miles an hour, and 5 big braking zones here. So braking is one of the key areas you've got to get on top of. And as we've heard from Jim and Tony and Mark in the studio, looking after these tyres over 58 laps is going to be pretty important.
Yes, and I think the brakes are right behind that, James. They didn't get the running yesterday on a dry track to fully sort out their brake cooling, some teams anyway, so that could be an issue in the second half of the race. We've seen, remember when Frentzen was leading this Grand Prix and he basically just burned all the way through his carbon fibre brake disc. So brakes, this is a heavy-duty circuit. It's a high duty level for the engines and the brakes, and of course if you've got understeer you'll just be graining and ripping those front tyres. If you've got poor traction you'll be wearing the rear tyres out very quickly, even with traction control. Flavio must be standing there thinking, we can win this Grand Prix today, surely we've got it in our pockets.
Well, he certainly loves going up on the podium, doesn't he, when his drivers win the races. Remember Michael Schumacher back in the early 90s, how much Flavio enjoyed the attention. It was Hollywood down there at the Benetton team. This is the same team again now, Renault, just a different name. And once again, as in the mid-90s, they are very firmly amongst the front runners in Formula One.
Now, I think there's not so much of a racing line here at the moment, so either side of the grid is not a big advantage, not as big as normal anyway, when they've normally been charging down the left-hand side. Normally the left-hand side of the field here would be a big advantage. New regulations this year, if the drivers stall the engine, they'll just simply send the pack instead of delaying the start. They'll send the pack around for another formation lap, I should say.
Pat Simmons there on the right. He's the master tactician of the Renault team. Everyone forming up.
And that's exactly what's happened. Sorry to cut across you, James. We've got a driver down there.
Raikkonen, I think it's Raikkonen.
Raikkonen, his car will now be pushed into the field. The amber lights will come on, and the green lights now come on to send the pack. I hope they've read their regulations. Come on, guys, you should go now. This is another formation lap, and Raikkonen will be pushed into the pit lane, and he has to start from the pit lane. My understanding is they cannot start that car on the grid and let him go to the back of the field.
That's absolutely right. New rule for 2005. Raikkonen then will be pushed into the pit lane where the mechanics can work on the car, try and start it. They haven't got out to him yet. No one has got to him yet. Hopefully they'll be able to get out fairly quickly. It's been a terrible weekend for Kimi Raikkonen. He was ahead of Juan Montoya after first qualifying. There he is, but he made a mistake this morning and lost the place to Juan Montoya. So psychologically, that was 1-0 to Juan Montoya. Trying to put the car into neutral there.
Yeah, look, the trouble is he's got so little steering lock, he'll struggle to get through the gap, but there's a big N sign and it pushes and releases the clutch with a little canister. They've got it through there. Sam Michael with a wry grin on his face, I thought, there for a moment. But Raikkonen then, as you say, James, a critical error this morning in second qualifying, and McLaren seem to be snatching defeat from the jaws of potential victory here, but it's a long way to go this afternoon. They can just fire that car up, though, and he can join from the back of the grid, from the pit lane, but he will not be disadvantaged. He will not lose a lap.
Well, it looks like he simply stalled it, I don't want to presume, but it's fired up again pretty easily. The mechanics there have managed to get it going without any trouble at all, and Raikkonen is now waiting at the exit of the pit lane. And so we've got two very fast cars coming through from the back, Michael Schumacher and Kimi Raikkonen as well. What an exciting prospect we have in store here.
Nice empty grid slot in front of young Kartikayan in the Jordan, which will help his progress. Let's hope he knows where to brake when he gets there. And I don't say that jokingly. It is such a difficult decision to decide where you're going to brake. Brake too early, you'll just be smashed into the back of. Brake too late, and you'll rip your front wing off or fly through the air, as we saw with Ralf Schumacher.
I have to say I like this new system. It's good. You get the race started. There's no reason to go through the 5-minute procedure again if you can simply push a car off the grid into the pit lane. And Raikkonen sitting there with his engine running, and I would be a little concerned. He's been sitting there for quite a long time, isn't he? That car's going to start getting very hot.
Well, it's a minute 30 when you're on it, and I think they're just switching it off now, and that's the only thing they can do. Otherwise, he'll boil all the water out of that. So it's a good 2.25 minutes, maybe even 2.5 minutes as a formation lap. But I tell you what, it doesn't help any of the other drivers either, James. Of course, these cars are cooled by the air being forced through the side pods. There are no fans. There's no normal cooling system that you get on a road car, and so they're all going to be getting towards the top end of the scale for engine temperature.
So Montoya really has got the upper hand in the McLaren team here this weekend. He will want to get a good result to really put one over his teammate Raikkonen. Rubens Barrichello in the middle of the pack. There's Alonso swirling the back of that Renault. Toyota of Ralf Schumacher as well. Flavio showing the tension on his face. There's Antonio Pizzonia, who missed out on the second Williams drive to Nick Heidfeld. Very disappointed, and I'm sure feeling very idle this afternoon with the other men racing. Christian Horner, new boss of Red Bull Racing, very exciting young sporting director. He's really going places. Hopefully we can get this Grand Prix underway then. Everybody is formed up. These cars will go from 0 to 125 miles an hour in 5 seconds. They are awesome machines. And the 2005 Formula One World Championship is go! Great start by Fisichella from pole. Webber goes to the middle. Trulli looks defensive. David Coulthard's done well. He's up into 4th. He's having a look at Webber. He's up into 3rd. Cracking start by David Coulthard.
Coulthard had to take the place because he was so deep into the corner. He had to make the overtake, but it worked a treat. As you say, up into 3rd for him. Fisichella leads then comfortably from Trulli. David Coulthard, what a dream debut for Red Bull Racing. And then it's Webber, and it seems like Heidfeld's had a stunning start as well.
You can see Rubens Barrichello in the middle of the pack as they all stream through, but Jordan's well in there as well. Fisichella putting a bit of a gap between himself and Jarno Trulli. Webber then down into 4th place. Heidfeld had a good start, hasn't he? And this is the pack. This is where all the action is. Jenson Button's in the middle of that. So's Fernando Alonso. Well, Button started in front of Alonso, so Alonso's had a really good start. Fisichella leading.
Well, Button is down 3, Alonso is up 3, and that's what's going on there. So a poor first few sectors for Jenson Button. This is Michael Schumacher, who's up to P16.
Fisichella leads, Trulli 2nd, Coulthard 3rd, Webber 4th, 5th is Heidfeld, 6th Klein, 7th Montoya, 8th Barrichello. Down to 9th place is Jacques Villeneuve, 10th is Alonso, 11th Button, 12th Ralf Schumacher, and Michael Schumacher making a move on one of the Jordans.
Yeah, he's just driving clean around the outside. So much more power has he got. And the McLaren behind him then, is that Kimi? Kimi's come steaming through the field on this lap. Amazing.
He certainly has, considering he started from the pit lane. Michael Schumacher started from the back of the grid. Look at the pace that Raikkonen's got. It'd be interesting to see if they get Michael Schumacher down into turn 1, because he certainly seems to be carrying an awful lot of speed. The leaders, though, are already on to the 2nd lap. Fisichella 1.4 ahead of Trulli. Coulthard 3rd, Webber 4th. There is Michael Schumacher, and well, no sign of a move there from Kimi Raikkonen. Schumacher into 15th place now.
Yes, Raikkonen took 4 cars on that lap alone, so a good effort from him there. At the moment, it seems to me that Villeneuve in 9th is holding up a queue behind him. There it is. Alonso, Button, Ralf Schumacher, Massa and Sato, and then, of course, Michael Schumacher and Kimi Raikkonen just behind them. Look how close they are. Raikkonen has much more speed than Michael Schumacher at this stage of the Grand Prix. Look, all over the back of him. Surely he'll be ready to make a move anytime soon.
Well, it certainly seems, because Michael Schumacher using the Bridgestone tyres, the only front-running team to be using Bridgestone. Kimi Raikkonen is on Michelin, as are most of the teams in Formula One now, with the exception of Jordan and Minardi. And the Bridgestone doesn't start quite as well as the Michelin. The Michelin gets up to temperature a bit quicker. It's a bit faster from the off. So Michael's going to have to defend in these early laps from Kimi Raikkonen. He knows he's there. These two are adversaries of old. And at the moment, there is no doubt that Schumacher is looking as much in his mirrors as he is looking forwards.
The problem here is, as fast and as open as it is, there's not really that many overtaking places, because the corner entry speeds are quite high, therefore not a particularly big braking zone. The clear one is down at turn 3, of course. So Fisichella leads from Trulli. David Coulthard out nicely on his own in 3rd. Webber holding station 4th. Heidfeld with that great start up to 5th. Klein then in the second Red Bull is 6th. Then Montoya, Barrichello, Villeneuve and Alonso.
Fastest lap on lap 2 to Jarno Trulli, 1:29.9. We're expecting the lap times to drop as we go along, but remember, they can't change tyres, and well, the tyres are going to start wearing out. Formerly, Grand Prix races were largely decided at the start, a little bit of strategy as well, the occasional overtaking move, but the new system is designed for the end of the races to be the bit where things get decided. You've got to make sure your car still has plenty of go in it with 15 laps to go. That's going to be crucial.
Yes, even on a fast racetrack. I'll come back to that point in a minute. We'll just see a replay of the start. Perfect then for Fisichella down the outside. Truly struggling a bit. Coulthard got off the line beautifully and locked the front wheel and really just had to carry on the move past Mark Webber, who saw him coming. It was nice and clean when it happened, but good stuff there. Michael Schumacher already feeding his way through. We're on board with Villeneuve, and there is the fast-starting Coulthard, and he then has to take almost avoiding action look to take, that's just instinctive stuff. Good stuff there from Coulthard up into 3rd, and Villeneuve just losing out then to, that's how Heidfeld made the big advantage. This is a camera angle from the curb through that first corner.
So at the end of lap 2, Giancarlo Fisichella leads Jarno Trulli by 1.4 seconds. Coulthard is 3rd. Webber still behind him. They're 4 seconds behind the race leader. There is Mark Webber, you can see. Behind him, Heidfeld in 5th. 6th, Klein. 7th, Montoya. 8th, Barrichello. Good start for him, up 3 places. Villeneuve down to 9th. 10th, Alonso on lap 4 of 58.
Coulthard beginning to come under pressure from Mark Webber. My understanding is that Williams are on the softer of the Michelin tyres. Coulthard's on the harder tyre, which may pay dividends later on in the race. We'll have to wait and see if they get graining or excessive wear. But at the moment, it's Webber with the fastest package, and Heidfeld, teammate Heidfeld, really hanging on nicely.
Well, there was a feeling in the paddock that maybe Webber had decided to go for 3 stops here this afternoon to put a lighter fuel load in for the second qualifying session, just to make sure he had the pace in the early part of this Grand Prix. Certainly difficult to draw too many conclusions from the winter testing, but it looks as though Williams haven't really got the super special pace that everyone was hoping they would have. Now the team, led by technical director Sam Michael, assure us there's some very exciting things coming out of the wind tunnel to help this car, to help it find some more aerodynamic downforce, some exciting things coming on the chassis. But at the moment, the car of Mark Webber doesn't really have the super pace of a Renault or a McLaren.
We've got to give some credit to the Jaguar, the ex-Jaguar team, who really created that car that morphed, the team morphed into Red Bull Racing. But it's not too shabby, is it? That's a top 10 car, it seems, on forgetting oddball qualifying sessions with strange weather. That Red Bull Racing car is a fast car.
Well, it's certainly there on merit at the moment. David Coulthard's lap times, mid 1:29s. He's a second a lap slower than the race leaders, but he's certainly on the pace of other people in the midfield, and obviously Barrichello, Alonso, the fast men, Button, Michael Schumacher, all trying to make their way through the pack. So they've got cars in front of them. There's some terrific scraps going on, particularly behind Villeneuve. Alonso, Button, Ralf Schumacher, all together there.
The point I started to make before we cut to a replay of the start, and that's interesting. Montoya's only really just hanging on to the lead pack, but Alonso, grid position is everything, even on an open racetrack like this. Alonso is 13.6 seconds and tapped up behind Villeneuve. He's 10th. He's 13.6 behind his teammate and leader, Fisichella, and that's just how much time you lose in the traffic.
Absolutely right. It seems there's 1 or 2 people out there just minding their cars at the moment. Montoya is a second behind Christian Klein, but he's lapping 3 or 4 tenths a lap slower than him. He seems quite comfortable in 7th place Montoya. He's obviously looking at the long game here. Here's Webber. He's getting much closer now to the back of David Coulthard. Well, we hear from the Cosworth engine people who supply Red Bull Racing that they've got an extra 70 or 80 horsepower compared to the engine in the Jaguar at the end of last season. That's a tremendous gain, considering that these engines now have to last 2 whole Grand Prix weekends. And that's certainly part of the reason that this package is more competitive. They've also just signed a new chief designer, Mark Smith, who was one of the guys responsible for Renault over the last few years. So, well, this team certainly got high ambitions with the Red Bull company behind them, and plenty of money in the bank. Certainly Christian Horner and Gunther Steiner, the top men there, aiming to push this team forwards. And well, they're loving having David Coulthard there, with all that experience and that calmness, and certainly Coulthard leading this team from the front.
Struggling a bit at the moment, though. He is in 3rd place, but he's sort of mid-29s, and everybody around him in the low 1 minute 29. He looks very steady under braking. So I know he had a bit of a brake pedal issue in practice, so maybe he's just being as calm as he can, especially with a heavy fuel load on board. But Webber, if he gets a sniff of him in a braking zone, it looks like he's got the far superior package under braking.
Yeah, it certainly does. Well, we haven't seen Michael Schumacher Raikkonen for a while. I can tell you they're in 15th and 16th places at the moment. They're tucked up behind Takuma Sato in the BAR Honda. He's 14th. It's a little way behind Felipe Massa. And well, Michael Schumacher and Raikkonen not seeming to want to make too much of an impression on Sato at the moment. This is up the front, though. Battle for 3rd place. Coulthard, Webber, Heidfeld, Klein doing a great job. Getting a 2nd chance with the team. Made his debut last year with Jaguar. Had a not massively impressive season, but because he's Austrian and because the owner of the team likes him, he's got a 2nd chance, and he's certainly taking advantage of that in this first Grand Prix of the season. Lap 7 then, Fisichella, almost 2 seconds now clear of Trulli. Coulthard being dropped, 6.4 behind the race leader. Webber, 7 seconds. 5th place is Heidfeld, nearly 8 seconds behind the leader. And then it's Klein, Montoya in 7th, Barrichello in the final points position in 8th at the moment. 10 seconds behind race leader Fisichella.
A better lap for Coulthard that time. He actually took 3 or 4 tenths out of the pursuing Williams and his teammate, so maybe he's found a better way in the braking zones. And this clearly then Alonso still tucked up behind Villeneuve, now 16 seconds adrift. How frustrating is that? Jacques, you'd have to say, I don't think he's really got on top of this 2005 package of Formula One regulations yet. Having said that, he's ahead of his teammate. Massa started at the back, of course.
Yes, it's extraordinary how much the weather intervening yesterday, the wet, dry session we had in qualifying, totally threw everything upside down. Really, the only person who got a proper dry lap was Fisichella, and he took advantage beautifully. But poor old Felipe Massa, who's been going quite well in the Sauber, certainly better than Jacques Villeneuve. He was out on dry tyres, and just as it started to tip with rain, you can see Alonso now right up behind Villeneuve having a go, and down he does it on braking. Nice move by Fernando Alonso.
What a beautiful piece of overtaking. Absolutely superb, but Villeneuve came back up the inside of him and retook the position. That was supremely skillful and brave there from Alonso, but he just went in a touch too deep at the final hurdle, and the wise ahead of Villeneuve still has his car in front. Alonso will be so frustrated.
Very good exit that Sauber got off the final corner, didn't he? He got much better drive down the main straight than Alonso. That's very interesting, but Alonso clearly under braking has a better car.
Well, now if Alonso's nicely in the slipstream here, surely he'll have a great go down into turn 3, but he's not quite near enough, and Villeneuve parking his car nicely in the middle of the racetrack, which he's perfectly entitled to do. But they're now 19 seconds behind the leader. But look, Michael Schumacher, Kimi Raikkonen, 24 and 25 seconds away from the leader. That's nearly a pit stop, James, and under these new regulations, I don't think you're going to be seeing so many phases of a Grand Prix. Clearly, they're not going to come in, put a new set of boots on and find a much better balance. I think it's going to be much more set in for the afternoon.
Well, the pace certainly a lot slower at this stage than it was 12 months ago. Part of the reason for that is we've had a lot of rain, so the track isn't quite as much rubbered in, but part of the reason is also this new rules package designed to slow the cars down, cutting the aerodynamic downforce by as much as 25%. And certainly, judging by the pace at the moment, it seems to have worked. I think probably some of the cars are carrying a bit more fuel than they did at this stage last year, but nevertheless, lap times at the moment about 3 seconds a lap slower than they were at this stage of last year's Grand Prix. And Martin, look at those black clouds.
Yeah, they look nearly as bad out of the window too. They certainly look very dark on the TV there, but Ted,
They do look very black, and they're coming this way, but a quick update from VAR. Jensen's engineers are willing him to stay with this fight with Fernando Alonso. If Jensen could just stay in touch with Alonso, but that gap is growing at the moment, he can follow him through this traffic, try to get up there, but all calm down here at VAR.
I was really interested to hear Aloise's interview with Jensen, because all he talked about was who was behind him. And obviously his mindset was, I'm defending today, I'm not attacking. That VAR is not right yet.
No, certainly isn't. So the battle continues between Alonso and Jacques Villeneuve. That's the scrap for 9th place at the moment on lap 9. Leading the way is Giancarlo Fisichella. Jarno Trulli in the Toyota is in 2nd place. We're looking at Alonso being repassed there by Jacques Villeneuve from a few minutes ago. David Coulthard is still 3rd. Mark Webber is still 4th. Nick Heidfeld is 5th. 6th, Christian Klien, 7th, Montoya, and 8th at the moment, Rubens Barrichello. Lap 10 of 58 here at Albert Park in Melbourne. The first race run to these new 2005 regulations. They have to keep the same set of tyres on throughout the Grand Prix, and the engines have to last for 2 races. Giancarlo Fisichella is leading by 2 seconds from Jarno Trulli, but Trulli in the Toyota is not really letting him get away. He was the fastest man on the track last time by David Coulthard. He's 6 seconds down the road from Jarno Trulli in 3rd place, with Mark Webber right behind him. And the other BMW Williams of Nick Heidfeld is 5th. Klien is still 6th for Red Bull Racing. 7th the McLaren of Juan Montoya, just over a second behind Klien. And then it's Barrichello 8th for Ferrari. 9th is Villeneuve, and 10th Fernando Alonso. This is the scrap we've been following for a few laps now, and we saw Fernando Alonso, Martin, just knock a little piece of his aerodynamics off. I'm not quite sure it was a bit of a barge board or a bit of under tray, but it'll certainly slow him down a bit. Yeah,
I think it will be part of the barge board, and possibly even a piece of the tongue, the under tray. And what will happen is the car will start to slide, a bit more understeer, I suspect. Therefore, your tyres will wear out. It's a higher penalty these days with this one tyre for the Grand Prix situation. But I'm beginning to wonder if Schumacher, Raikkonen and Montoya are on a one-stopper, because they're nowhere. They're also Rans in this race. Michael Schumacher in 15th, and Raikkonen in the 16th in the 1 minute 29s. The leaders in the 1 minute 27s. And I just don't understand where this pace is. And Montoya kind of coasting around P7, cannot make any impression on Klien at this stage, although he's on his fastest lap at the moment of the race. Maybe Montoya's just picking up his pace now, but so far, pretty lackluster.
Well, let's try and put that into some sort of perspective for you, shall we? With 58 laps of this Grand Prix, if you were on a one-stop strategy, you'd be looking to make your pit stop around about lap 26. Most of these cars have a fuel tank that's around 85 to 90 kilos as the maximum amount of fuel that they can carry. And, well, that would get you to the sort of mid-20s, that kind of thing. If you're on a two-stop strategy, you'd be likely to stop sometime around lap 14 to 16, which is in just a few laps' time. And if you were going to three-stop, well, you'd probably be coming in very shortly indeed. So we'll see what everybody's doing.
Yes, they're showing 57 at the top, of course, because of the extra formation lap. So, whatever, Alonso is still fast enough, whatever bits and pieces he's got missing, to start to keep challenging Villeneuve. But Ted has some news on Alonso's car.
Yeah, the Renault engineers say that it's the piece of the lower left front barge board. Just to explain, that's a little piece of carbon fibre that tidies up the airflow round the side of the side pods and underneath the car. But they're not at all worried about it. They haven't said anything to Fernando on the radio. I think he knows that by going off he's going to do things like that, but they haven't given many caution messages.
I would imagine he's still trying to get his tonsils back in the right place, because he's sitting on the floor of that car, and that'll send quite a shockwave through your body when you fly off the end of that curve. But he's just got to calm that one down. But I'm also surprised here. Trulli is very much hanging on to Fisichella, isn't he?
Well, what a difference a year makes. 12 months ago, Michael Schumacher came here. He stuck it on pole position, won his 4th race here in 5 years. And the margin, well, it was 50 seconds over the nearest non-Ferrari at one point in the race before he backed off. He is now on lap 13, half a minute behind Giancarlo Fisichella. It's because he started from the back of the grid. He's obviously carrying a bit of fuel, and he's finding it difficult to make any progress. Takuma Sato is a second up the road from him, and they are mired down in 14th, 15th, and Kimi Raikkonen in 16th places. There's a look at Ralf Schumacher, teammate to Jarno Trulli. He's currently lapping 1.5 seconds a lap slower, though, than his teammate.
take a look through this and try and understand it. We've now got the top 5 are all in the 1 minute 27s. There's 11.8 seconds between them. Fisichella, Trulli, Coulthard, Webber and Heidfeld. Klein has now started to fall away quite heavily. So I don't know what's happening with him, his tyres or his brakes, but quite clearly really suffering at this stage of the Grand Prix. He was handy early on. Montoya still not making any inroads. He's still a second behind him.
Well, Martin spoke with the rookie, one of 4 rookies in the field today, Narain Karthikeyan on the grid. He had a terrific grid slot, 12th place. He said he was going to keep an eye on his mirrors, but he wasn't going to let anyone through too easily. Well, I can let you know that he's now down in 18th place, and even his teammate, Thiago Monteiro, has managed to get past him. So we haven't seen Karthikeyan in the race, but obviously it's a bit of a baptism of fire for all of these rookies. Monteiro 17th for Jordan, 18th Karthikeyan, and then the 2 Minardi drivers also making their debuts here. Freysacker and Albers are 19th and 20th, and they are lapping 6 seconds a lap off the pace of race leader Giancarlo Fisichella. For reference, Karthikeyan and Monteiro a couple of seconds a lap slower.
There's definitely an element here of let's let the afternoon unfold and see what happens later on. We're on lap 14. I have to say I can really relate to this from the 80s. Whether this is progress or not, I'm really not at all convinced actually, but you know, you have to drive your car thinking about the whole afternoon instead of breaking it up into bite-sized pieces with fuel and new tyre stints. You've got to really have a measured afternoon, and I think we've got that stage of the race at the moment where they're all just waiting to see what happens. A long way to go yet, but I don't see any killer moves going on.
Well, it's a question of ideology, really, isn't it? Certainly Grand Prix racing had evolved into a sprint, a series of sprints, sometimes 2-3 pit stops. Put a new set of tyres on at each pit stop, short amount of fuel and go out and sprint some more. It was all flat out from start to finish, punctuated by the pit stops. But now, as you see Fisichella for the first time on lap 14 coming to lap one of the Minardis. That's Albers first that he's going past. Easy peasy into turn 1, and Freysacker will be next, and the young Austrian driver will be lapped by Fisichella. As I say, it's a question of ideology. I mean, this is more of a wait-and-see kind of situation, managing the cars like they did back in the 1980s, but certainly Alain Prost, a master of that, winning 4 world titles, and a lot of people look back on those as the good old days. Whether or not this is the right direction for Formula 1, time will tell.
Something that's always amazed me about motor racing and Formula 1 in particular. Did you see how hard it was for Fisichella to pass that Minardi down the pit straight? Drag squares with speed, and when you get up to sort of 180 miles an hour, you need so much more horsepower to find another 10 that really the difference in speed is not that much. It's kind of walking pace to a large extent, and the Minardi was not about to clear off the racing line. He made the race leader go off the racing line up into the inside of turn 1. Fisichella probably won't be thinking too hard about that. That would have been a touch surprised and miffed at the time.
Well, one of the things I've noticed about these new rules are these harder tyres that have got to last 250 miles now instead of perhaps 50 or 60 as they did last year. Look at the offline here. You see, it's dark on the way through the line. It's a little track where the rubber's gone down, but there's no marbles, what we used to call marbles offline, little chunks of rubber that roll off the tyre and get left on the outside, mix up with the dirt. You don't seem to see that in Grand Prix racing anymore, and it's probably a good thing. Obviously, it's something that discouraged people from getting offline to make a passing move, but I don't know if it's going to encourage overtaking or not.
Raikkonen's 4/10 behind Michael Schumacher. They're 15th and 16th. I feel I want to get out of the commentary box, go down there, put the red light on and stop them and say, well, what are you doing? What's wrong? They're 38 seconds behind. And they're not really that close to anybody else. It's just bizarre. Even if they're non-stopping this afternoon, they're still too far behind. Bizarre. Nice graphic here. You can see the G-forces on the driver, on his body. Red is for the brakes forward. Watch the big stop at the end of this. 180 miles an hour. Oh, cut away from it. Anyway, it's 180 miles an hour down to 80. And you can see Webber now is getting a lot closer to David Coulthard. There's Heidfeld watching them. And Klein as well is staying with that group. In the second Red Bull racing car. Yeah, they've passed the Minardis on this lap. So it looks like Webber's made a little bit of ground during passing those 2 cars. But, DC appeared at this stage to have a pretty equal measure to the speed of the Williams. Great performance from Red Bull Racing. Where are they now? They're 3rd and 6th. And you have to say, Williams, they came here, everybody was saying, well, they're just going to have an awful weekend, didn't they? And they're not looking too bad either. No, well, it's difficult to judge the lap times at the moment because
a lot of the fast guys are stuck in the middle of the field, but certainly Fisichella's lapping in the low 27s. You can see there Coulthard just getting a bit leery, getting right up behind the back and knocking a little bit of bodywork off, a little bit of front wing possibly. He got very, very close and Webber almost got him. Look at that, Webber on the grass trying to get past him. What a moment that was. I'd very much like to see that again.
I wonder what piece flew off. Was it a bit of Minardi or a bit of DC and his front wing end fence? And Prix apparently has come into the pits at the first pit stop of the afternoon on lap 17, and Coulthard so nearly out of the race and had to get super defensive and squeeze Mark Webber onto the grass. No wonder they were a bit closer when we picked them up earlier on.
Absolutely, that was quite some moment there for David Coulthard. Enormous disparity in speed. Coulthard lapping about 7 or 8 seconds a lap faster than the Minardi, and it suddenly caught him. He's just like happens at Le Mans.
But DC, to get away from Mark, has gone for a fastest of anybody in the first sector, 29 seconds flat. So quite clearly, it's not damaged his car. I hope it hasn't cracked a front wing post or something like that. He must have just been the merest glance as he nearly slammed into the back of the Minardi, didn't he?
Yep, Webber responded though. He's set the fastest middle sector of the race so far in the Williams, so he is not going to let David Coulthard get away from him. Meanwhile, Toyota ready for one of their drivers. Is it Jarno Trulli? There is Trulli, second place man, goes through. It could be Ralf Schumacher then. He is currently running in 12th place, just behind Jenson Button.
Well, if the Toyotas are about to stop, it's bad news for them, because I think fundamentally people are too stopping this afternoon. Coulthard just blats one in the 1 minute 26s. That's just a couple of seconds off the lap record with much harder tyres. So he's got some grip and some balance this afternoon. Better watch out for him.
Certainly is. 1 minute 24.1 is the lap record here, set last year by Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari. There you can see Alonso in front of Jacques Villeneuve. We haven't seen how he did that. We saw them having a good old scrap. Well, here it is.
It's down at that same turn, isn't it? He's quicker out of turns 11 and 12 than Jacques, and better on the brakes. And this time, he squeezes it hard to the apex, and Jacques could not come back at him. Now we'll watch Alonso scamper off after Rubens Barrichello, I suspect, who is 8 and 11.8 seconds ahead of him.
Well, the host here this weekend is FOM TV, Bernie Ecclestone's organisation, rolling in the replays there. I'd very much like to see how Mark Webber got up on the grass and how much space Coulthard left him. That was a very interesting moment. And Louise has some news for us.
The Red Bull garage, the mechanics down here just leapt to their feet when they saw the same pictures that we saw of that bodywork flying up, walked out into the pit lane just to be on standby in case Coulthard was going to come in. But there's been no news from him over the radio. And as one of the mechanics just said to me, if that was a bit of the car coming off, it's made him go quicker, so it doesn't seem to be causing any problems.
Now watch this pit stop. First time in 2005. You can't change tyres. They can, though, change tyre pressures, are they? Not at the moment. They're just examining the tyres, inspecting them. Some teams have got very sophisticated devices for changing the tyre pressures because it's the only thing you can play with in a pit stop. Obviously, they're going to start playing with them. Looks like the Williams team have got one of their drivers in as well. It's Nick Heidfeld. There he is.
Yeah, that's a lot of bodies to line up and do nothing with, isn't it? In terms of it's just like a human garage, basically. And well, I'm surprised they're in the pits that early. That's going to put a smile on a few teams' faces to see that.
Yep, 2 stopping then almost certainly this afternoon, everybody. Well, all the people we've seen, obviously. We think that 1 or 2 of the big names might be just doing 1 pit stop here this afternoon. Obviously, protecting the tyres is the name of the game, and a number of people were worried about if you carry a lot of fuel around in this early part of the Grand Prix with not much rubber down on the track, it certainly can take an awful lot out of the tyres. If you're looking for signs of trouble, look at the left front tyres. That's where the trouble will start to show the most at the first, because that's the tyre that takes the most pain around this 3.29-mile Albert Park track. Fisichella then leading by 9.3 seconds now after Trulli made the pit stop. David Coulthard is in 2nd place, and it's Webber 3rd, Klein 4th, Montoya up to 5th, Barrichello 6th. Trulli rejoins in 7th place after that pit stop, with Alonso 8th, just over 6 seconds behind him. And it looks like we've got our first retirement of the 2005 season. It's Alba's, and that car is going nowhere fast.
Looks like transmission failure, I suspect. If that was indeed the car they were pushing in earlier on. So Fisichella leads by 9.2, but Coulthard is catching him by a nibble every lap at the moment, and Webber's keeping Coulthard honest, and they've dropped Clean by 6.4 seconds. Clean's not too shabby on time though, and in the pits, Ralf Schumacher in the second Toyota.
All of these cars then on two-stop strategies, 8.5 seconds, that's how long the fuel nozzle was on the car for, and that means that it dropped something in the region of about 60 kilos of fuel into the car, which is about 20 laps worth. 72 litres equates to about 60 kilos.
So Webber's in next, it would appear. He's currently in third place, 10 seconds off the lead. Fisichella, not really any pressure on him at the moment, but I think he's got to keep on it, James, because these two look like they've got a reasonable amount of speed and balance this afternoon.
Yes, this will be surprising some people. Definitely will be surprising a few people. Michael Schumacher update for you. He's down in 14th place, still behind Sato as Webber dives into the pits. The first of the Williams to make, the second Williams to make his stop then. And Michael Schumacher is 44 seconds behind the race leader, and looks like the Red Bull team are ready for with a front wing. Now we saw Coulthard clouting the back of a Minardi earlier. I wonder if that's for him.
Coulthard does the fastest lap of the race, takes 9/10 out of Fisichella's lead. The lead just 8.3 seconds now. So Coulthard, you'd suspect, is coming in anytime soon, wouldn't you? In that he's really stepping on the gas. He wants to keep that advantage over Mark Webber. Webber loses out to Alonso. And, well, you've just got to assume the two McLarens and the two Ferraris are going an awful long way before they pit stop.
One of the reasons that Webber lost out to Alonso in that stop is because Alonso just set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far. He pushed very hard to make sure that he was in front of Webber when he came out from that stop. That's very fast driving, good driving from Fernando Alonso. Takuma Sato, that's great news for Michael Schumacher.
First gear on the way out.
Jock Clear there talking to Sato, first gear on the way out, he said. And Sato pitting is terrific news for Michael Schumacher. That will release him now.
Klein has pitted in the Red Bull race, second Red Bull Racing, and Alonso is flying. He's up to P6 now. Now he's cleared Villeneuve. He has got the raw pace. Fastest first and second sectors on this lap. You're watching Barrichello, who's up to P4 at the moment, doing 1 minute 27s. Coulthard's in the 26s. Fisichella now back in the 28s. Coulthard pits.
Yeah, David Coulthard, we're not seeing it, but David Coulthard has come into the pits, and the question is he going to have to change that nose cone as Barrichello blasts out of turn 16, going down the straight. We're looking at a replay here of one of the Jordans. That's Carter Cahan, I believe, going a little bit wide. Yep, Carter Cahan running in 17th place in the Jordan. Now Coulthard has rejoined. We haven't seen it, but he's back out on track. We didn't see where he rejoined relative to Fernando Alonso either. That's a pretty critical issue.
The nose could have been for Klein because he pitted first of the two Red Bulls, but as you say, we didn't see Coulthard. Michael Schumacher, Kimi Räikkönen, 45 seconds behind the leader. So almost, as I said earlier, whatever strategy they're on, it's such. Asking. They're asking.
Okay, understood. I'm not going to make any changes at the pit stop. There will be no change to balance the pit stop. Okay, is that okay?
Yeah, and that's what that's about, is tyre pressures, James, isn't it? In terms of all they can really do is pump up or let down the tyres. They've got some quite sophisticated systems to accommodate these new regulations. Ted is down at VAR.
Now with Jenson Button having made his first pit stop of the year, I must say it wasn't as exciting before, no tyres changing, but he did make an adjustment to the front tyres. I'm not sure whether it was up or down. I have a feeling it was up. I spoke to Jeff Willis before the race. He said, yeah, we're going to give the tyres a little bit of a squirt, just keep them nicely up to pressure. It wasn't much, and he's on his way.
Michael Schumacher there looked like one of the cars flying off in front of him. Felipe Massa was the car in front of him on the racetrack, but we couldn't see exactly who that was. Hopefully we'll get a replay of it. That very strange incident. Now, Coulthard came out of his pit stop behind Fernando Alonso, the Renault driver, up into 4th place on lap 23. Fisichella leading by 18 seconds from Montoya now, who is in second place. Barrichello is third, Alonso is fourth, Coulthard is fifth, sixth is Mark Webber, seventh Jarno Trulli, and eighth Christian Klien. So the order has changed substantially as a result of that first round of pit stops. And the cars that were towards the front all went out with a two-stop fuel load at the start of this Grand Prix and in qualifying this morning, whereas some of the big names have obviously carried a lot more fuel into this Grand Prix, and they've got some options now in front of them. Montoya, as I say, up into second place. There's Michael Schumacher. He's up into 10th place, 47 seconds behind Fisichella, who is in the pits.
The leader pits then on lap 22. And away he goes, no problems at all. Coulthard's got his hands full. He's got Webber charging down on him as they've rejoined on the same tyres. They'll have to bring them back up to temperature. And crucially then, Barrichello goes through to lead the Grand Prix for Ferrari. And let's see how much further ahead he is than his teammate. He's a full 40 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher. This little group here, who've yet to stop, of course. So crucially, Coulthard came out in front of Webber. And these pair, which are a much lighter fuel load now. Michael Schumacher, Kimi Räikkönen with a much lighter car at this stage because they haven't just been in and topped up.
So that was interesting, wasn't it, that Barrichello managed to get himself in front of Fisichella. Clearly, it didn't quite work out. Fisichella didn't have quite a big enough lead to maintain it after his pit stop. So Barrichello takes the lead. Alonso is in third place. And Montoya has pitted for McLaren. His first McLaren pit stop, Juan Montoya, is shown as being down in sixth place now. There you can see it. That's the top 8, but it's changing all the time at the moment on lap 24 because we are into the main pit stop zone here. Mixture of 2-stop and 3-stop. We didn't get a stopwatch time on Montoya's stop, so we didn't know how much fuel he put into that car, which is a shame because we'd very much like to know what he's doing in this race.
Coulthard just pulling out a bit of a gap on Webber now. Webber's got his mirrors absolutely full of Scarlet Ferrari, and Kimi Räikkönen still waiting to pounce, having stalled the car on that opening grid and forcing another formation lap. It's really compromised his afternoon. Teammate Montoya is up in 6th place at the moment, some 20 seconds behind Barrichello, who currently leads the race. He hasn't stopped. Fisichella is second, he has stopped. Alonso is absolutely flying, and he is the man to watch through the next phase of this Grand Prix.
Lap 26 of the Australian Grand Prix. Both Rubens Barrichello, who was leading the race, and Fernando Alonso, who was behind him, have pitted. Here you can see where Alonso is feeding back into the field. That's the Toyota of Jarno Trulli, who was 7th. They're very, very, very close to each other into turn 1. As into the pits comes 12th place man Kimi Räikkönen, having a bit of a nightmare today.
So they're one stopping. The Toyota did just make it through. Alonso then is going to be tucked up behind somebody else. Klien in there too, in what was 8th place. But of course the problem is, James, yes, they're one stopping. They've got one less stop to make this. But Michael and Kimi are so far behind. Now they've got a really fat car to carry all the way to the end of the Grand Prix. And they'll have to keep an eye on tyre wear and brake wear as well, because that accelerates when you carry another 20, 30 kilos of fuel. And is this Michael Schumacher having a look at Webber? It is indeed. Is that Heidfeld? Yeah.
Yep, Nick Heidfeld he's having a go at, 9th place man. Michael Schumacher has to go make a fuel stop. He's the only man in the field. Sorry, I beg your pardon, Felipe Massa as well has not made a stop. So just the two of them, and Massa is behind Michael Schumacher, 5 seconds behind him on the road. So Schumacher may well pass Heidfeld, but that's because he's got no fuel in his car, and Heidfeld has got quite a bit in his. But as soon as he comes to the pits, obviously Heidfeld will get past him again. It's not working out today for Michael Schumacher. Meanwhile, Fernando Alonso is shown now as being in 5th place and is set in the fastest first sector of the race so far. Dripping down now, beg your pardon, he's behind Trulli. He's 7th as the computer sorts itself out, and into the pits comes Michael Schumacher. He was 11th. Ted Kravitz.
Ferrari boys go to work. Let's have a look if they do anything. No, there's nothing on the front wheels that they're doing. A guy is just checking the temperature of the tyre surface. He's away, but that's a quicker stop, isn't it? Is that still a one-stop, guys?
It's a very short fill, isn't it? Prediction there, 15 laps. So what they've done, they don't want to send Michael out with a fat car that we were talking about. They're going to try and get him up the field because it hasn't worked so far. They've just been way too slow. The tyre temperature data they're collecting there is just for information. There's nothing they can do about that this afternoon.
Well, they've gone pretty much to the maximum of how far they could go with the size of the fuel tank that they have at the start of this Grand Prix. 26 laps into the race when Michael Schumacher made his first pit stop. And, well, the fact that he's going to stop once more in the race also suggests that they're a bit worried about tyre wear. They obviously don't feel that the car would make it comfortably to the finish, carrying a heavy load of fuel for the rest of the session. So they're going to give it a bit of a break and let it stop again. So we'll see. This is the battle, though, we saw brewing earlier between Trulli and Alonso. And although Alonso was setting fast sector times on that last lap, he's still not been able to get past Trulli. Battle for 7.
Some talk in the paddock that Ferrari expecting this qualifying format to change, and they might be building their 2005 car with a much bigger fuel tank on it. We'll find out if that turns out to be the truth, but there will be a little bit of political wrangling over that if there's any truth in that whatsoever. But Fisichella leads by 12 seconds from David Coulthard, but once again Coulthard's got the faster car and is beginning to haul him back in again. And still, Webber's keeping Coulthard very honest in 3rd place.
Yeah, Coulthard's obviously lost out a little bit as a result of where he rejoined from his first pit stop. He's 12 seconds behind Giancarlo Fisichella, and he wasn't that much behind him before the first round of stops. So at the moment, Fisichella took advantage from the pit stop, but Coulthard has the faster car at the moment to the tune of half a second a lap.
Yes, it was 8.3 seconds Coulthard was behind at the stop. Now it's 12.0. Ted has more news.
You're absolutely right about the Ferrari's fuel tank, Martin. It's not big enough to hold enough fuel for a one-stop fuel strategy. Of course, this is a very modified version of last year's car. But last year's car, they would never have needed to make a one-stop, and they couldn't make the fuel tank bigger. By the way, the word from Maranello apparently is that the fuel tank in the new car is only slightly bigger than this one.
So are you saying then, Ted, they were absolutely brimmed at the start of this race,
Martin,
and that was as much as they could get in it? So,
absolutely, Martin. They couldn't have got any more, and this is a long first stint and then a short stint now to the next stop.
Bad news for Ferrari.
Yeah, one of the things we do know about this Ferrari, of course, it's based on last year's car. We're talking about new cars. Basically, most of these teams, with the exception of Jordan and Minardi, are running 2005 specification cars. These are new cars that were designed towards the end of last year and tested in the early part of this year, and obviously brought here as to go as fast as they possibly can. Ferrari have gone a different route. They've modified last year's car, which won the World Championship, bought themselves a little bit more time to understand and refine their 2005 design to make sure the aerodynamics are as good as they possibly can be. That's what we're talking about with Ferrari's new car, as Raikkonen kicks up some dust there. And, well, we do know that last year's Ferrari's fuel tank was 85 kilos maximum, so they went absolutely as far as they could, and Ted is dead right. They could not go to the finish. From lap 26, they couldn't go to the finish of this 57-lap race on that fuel tank.
Coulthard just taking another 9/10 out of Fisichella's lead and dragging Webber along with him. Barrichello is up to what is now then a genuine 4th place, isn't it, as he's at stop, followed by Montoya. Trulli has fallen away badly in those pit stops. Alonso, of course, with that stunning pace, has got himself up to P7 once he cleared Villeneuve, and Klein leapfrogged Heidfeld in the last pit stop too. And Raikkonen beginning to find some speed now. Everybody has stopped once, with the exception of Ralf Schumacher, who's been in twice. We have 19 runners. Christian Albers is out of the Grand Prix.
Well, David Coulthard is taking 7/10 of a second out of Giancarlo Fisichella on every lap at the moment. He's got the gap down to the leader, down to 10 seconds, and they've pitted just 2 laps apart, so they're on a fairly similar strategy, David Coulthard and Giancarlo Fisichella. Coulthard carrying a similar amount of fuel in this middle part of the Grand Prix. It's very, very interesting to see how this will unfold. You ride on board with the leader. This is lap 30.
Giancarlo, you have Coulthard 10 seconds behind you, but he's quicker than you at the moment, mate. He's quicker, so you need the pace up, need the pace up.
Fisichella being told by race engineer Alan Permain to keep the pace up. Coulthard is behind you, he's quicker, is the message from Alan Permain, and we'll see now if Fisichella responds. Coulthard is in 2nd place, Webber 3rd, 4th Barrichello, 5th Montoya, 6th Jarno Trulli, 7th Alonso, and 8th, hanging in there, Christian Klein. Lap 31 here at Albert Park of this Grand Prix. Giancarlo Fisichella is being caught by David Coulthard, although he's just responded actually on that last lap and just managed to take the cushion out a little bit to Coulthard in second place. Webber, Mark Webber, here we are riding on board with him, looking at Coulthard in front of us. As you can see the margin for yourself, it's 0.8 of a second. Barrichello fourth, fifth is Montoya, and sixth now is Fernando Alonso. He passed Jarno Trulli a second ago, Martin.
Yes, he did. He double shuffled him down in to turn 13 there, where he's been super brave on the brakes and moved up nicely to P6. He's chasing after Montoya now. Can't work out what's going on there. Coulthard and Webber have slowed down a lot, presumably Webber in the dirty air of that Red Bull Racing car. But just suddenly, Coulthard's pace has fallen away. They did pass a Jordan. I don't know if it's all about traffic or whether Coulthard has got some kind of problem developing. Louise may be able to tell us. She's with team principal Christian Horner.
I am. I'm down in the Red Bull garage. Christian, we're just talking about the fact that David seems to have been slowing down over the last couple of laps. Is there any kind of problem?
No, I mean, David's doing a great job. You know, we've got quite a lot of fuel on board. The tyres look in good shape. He's reported no problems so far. You know, he made a great start, and you know, we're going to try and hang in there.
At the risk of laying some kind of curse on you, so far this race, particularly for Coulthard, is going like a dream, isn't it?
Yeah, David's doing a great job for us. You know, he's been on it all weekend. We had a small problem in qualifying yesterday. He rectified that this morning and went third quickest, and he looks pretty comfortable out there.
You have been catching Fisichella. Can you catch him and overtake him? Is this a race you could win?
We're pretty happy with where we are at the moment, but we'll certainly give it a go.
Could you give us any indication of how much fuel you was put into the car when David came in relation to your competitors?
Enough.
Thank you.
You beauty, DC. As you may know, I negotiated his Formula One contract, and we had a lot of soul searching at the end of last year as to whether he should go with a fledgling team. Or was it the right decision? We had enough key people ringing us up and telling us we were crazy and DC should just call it a day because he'd had his chances, and at 33 years old he really should just retire or take a test drive or something. And DC said, I'm going racing, I'm not listening to those guys. And here he is with a very solid second place in the Grand Prix, and now beginning to catch Fisichella one more time. I think the slow lap times were traffic that we didn't necessarily see.
I'll tell you another thing about David Coulthard that we're learning here this afternoon. He's matched with Christian Klein. There is his girlfriend, Coulthard's girlfriend, Simone, Brazilian, and she's been with him for some time. But tell you what we're learning about him is that he's 18 seconds up the road from teammate Christian Klein. Coulthard's second, Klein is 8th, and Coulthard lapping second and a half a lap faster. And that just shows the value of experience. Someone at the driver of his caliber in this car, really pushing this team along, and well, it's giving him a new lease of life, isn't it, really?
It's great. He's very relaxed, driving nicely. Crucially, he's quicker through this last corner than Webber. Webber hasn't got the balance, and nor has Heidfeld in the sister Williams. And you've got to be close in the last corner to have a look down into turn 1 or be anywhere near close enough for turn 3. So I don't think Webber's fast enough in the right places unless DC makes a mistake.
One significant development that came out of the pit stop of Michael Schumacher is that it dropped him behind Kimi Raikkonen. Raikkonen is now up into 10th place. Michael Schumacher is down to 11th. And for the first half of this Grand Prix, those positions were reversed. So Schumacher is not having a particularly fun afternoon, although you have to say that at this point in the race, he's suddenly found some pace. He's lapping in the 1:26s. So is Kimi Raikkonen. And, well, the front runners are in the mid 1:27s. And it's the two McLarens and the Ferrari of Michael Schumacher that are the fastest cars on the racetrack at the moment.
Yes, they are. They're really down in the 26s. Of course, we think they short-fueled the Ferrari. We don't really know on the McLaren. That could haul Raikkonen up the points tally, but he's still 40 seconds behind the leader, which is more than a pit stop, of course.
Another significant thing that's happened, Jenson Button. Well, we saw him starting 8th on the grid, not having a terrific weekend. He's slipped back to 13th place, and his teammate Takuma Sato, who started at the back of the grid, having taken an engine penalty before second qualifying, well, he's only 1.9 seconds behind Jenson Button on lap 35, so it's not going right at all for Jenson Button here at Albert Park. This is lap 35. Fisichella 12.2 now seconds ahead of David Coulthard. Webber still third, right behind Coulthard. Barrichello is fourth, 4 seconds behind the Williams. And then Juan Montoya, who led this race briefly, is 4 seconds behind Barrichello. A total of 21 behind the race leader in 5th place, with Alonso just over 6 seconds behind him. So apart from Coulthard-Webber, they're all fairly spaced out in the top 6.
Yeah, it's not a happy day though for Toyota, slipping down, truly down to 7. Remember, he held a strong second earlier on. Ralf Schumacher hasn't featured, down in 16th place. And as you say, BAR off the pace in 13th and 14th. It's not where we expected them to see a standout performance, is it?
No, Button's tucked up behind Jacques Villeneuve, who's 12th, and he's just 0.6 of a second behind him. Their pace is poor, mid 1 minute 28. As I say, Sato just behind them. Perhaps Ted Kravitz now in the pits at the BAR garage can shed some light on Jensen's plight.
Well, I tell you what, the irony that being stuck and having your race ruined, sitting behind Jacques Villeneuve of all people, is not lost on all these BAR mechanics down here. There's no real clues as to Jensen's problem. As I say, it's just that Villeneuve won't get out of the way. We do think, by the way, that Villeneuve has to stop before Jensen, so at least Jensen can get the hammer down. But as we say now, the tyres are going to be starting to wearing far down, and these guys are just going to have to take it so carefully.
Thanks, Ted. Kimi Räikkönen has the right-hand barge board and some aerodynamic pieces. You can see it. If you look at your left hand, his right hand, that dramatically affects performance. I have to say, I think, in fact, he's got a piece of somebody else's bodywork in there, I think. And that'll be affecting also the cooling on the right-hand side pod. They may have to bring him in and take that off if it doesn't come off by itself. But the cars are beautiful this year, absolutely stunning in their detail. The way that the aerodynamicists and engineers have created the airflow of the car, and Räikkönen is very slow at this stage, and that's just destroying all the airflow under the car too.
He's very vulnerable too. He got himself in front of Michael Schumacher as a result of the pit stops, but he is now 2.5 seconds a lap slower than Schumacher, who is closing right up on him. Now got the gap down to 4 seconds between Schumacher and Kimi Räikkönen. So Räikkönen's in trouble here at Albert Park, not for the first time this weekend. He made a mistake in qualifying this morning. He got pushed off the grid at the start and had to start this race from the pit lane. Finally got himself in front of Michael Schumacher and put some margin between himself and the world champion. But now with this bodywork problem, and Schumacher's car doesn't seem to be handling right either.
Is that Michael with his hand up in the air? Michael Schumacher with his hand up in the air, or was he taking a rip-off the visor or whatever? But I think that'll be seriously affecting the engine temperatures too on Räikkönen's car. They'll be watching that closely on the data acquisition. They can see that here at the racetrack. They can see it back at the factory in Woking. They know exactly how his temperatures are going, and they'll keep an eye on it.
We have got a car off at turn 13, which is car number 18 of Montero. I wonder whether Schumacher was acknowledging the yellow flag with his hand. It's possible, but either way, look at those tyres. They don't look too bad, do they? The left front, as I said before, is the one that will show the most wear. Jarno Trulli, first man then to make the second stop of the afternoon. And there is the reason why Montero is off track.
Yeah, and yeah, talking about the tyres, looking at them through free practice, they just look superb. They've really got the compounding right. Let's see what Michael Schumacher's time was, a 27.2, so he wasn't too shabby. Räikkönen's in the 128s now. But what's going on in the temperature department, and will they have to bring forward his next stop?
I wonder. Beautiful skyline of Melbourne, always in a battle with Sydney to who can outdo each other for events, and certainly the Australians, not only do they know how to organise a world-class sporting event, they certainly, the fans know how to enjoy one too. They turn up in their hundreds of thousands here, despite the rain yesterday. We had a huge crowd, almost 400,000 people expected over the 4 days of this Grand Prix weekend. And, well, they call Albert Park, Melbourne, a great place for the race, and none of us would argue with that.
You see, on those, we saw this last year, didn't we, with the Parc Fermé situation. All of these little brackets and bolts that may be much more intensively checked, they can't do that anymore because the cars go off into Parc Fermé. And we did see quite a lot of bits and pieces hanging off cars, didn't we, particularly in the early stages of last year with the Parc Fermé situation. It looks like a piece of his own car. I keep looking at it. I don't think it's anybody else's car. It's a bit of barge board or something that's wedged in there. You can see it now poking out.
What's it doing to his lap times? He's in the mid to high 127s. Michael Schumacher now in the low 1 minute 26s, so he is catching him, and I'm pretty sure he's going to have a go at him in the next couple of laps. But here's an interesting phase of the Grand Prix. For the first time, the top 7 runners are all lapping in the same sort of pace in the mid 1 minute 26s. That's the first time we've seen that. There's been a real disparity up to this point, but now they're all kind of lapping at the same pace. So it's extremely hard to predict how this race is going to turn out. One thing you can say for sure, though, is with a 12-second cushion at the front after 39 laps, Giancarlo Fisichella is looking good for his second Grand Prix victory.
Yeah, we ought to talk about him, really. Flavio will be doing his pieces. His car's not getting on the telly, is it? It's leading so comfortably. Fisichella's just pacing himself. Whatever Coulthard does, he's just matching it to give himself that, keep that cushion around a dozen seconds. And he really does look like he's got it completely under control up front. But second, third and fourth is wide open, maybe even between 5 drivers. Coulthard, Webber, Barrichello, Montoya and Alonso, all with fast cars at this stage. Clean's hanging on too, but he's 35 seconds behind Fisichella now. But I think there's 5 drivers up for second and third place at the end of this race.
Well, here we have a real good scrap forming up here. Trulli, Villeneuve, Button and Sato, 11th, 12th, 13th and 14th, and there's an awful lot of niggling going on there. I wonder who's going to make the move first. I wonder, Martin, with these harder tyres this season that have got to last these 250 miles now, do you think that's contributing to less overtaking? Is it more difficult to overtake, do you think, on the harder tyres?
Yeah, you've got less mechanical grip, and of course you're petrified of locking a front wheel by going in too deep. You're running about 3 degrees of camber on the front. You lock a wheel, it just wears away a big patch on the inside of the tyre, vibrates like crazy, it shakes your eyeballs. You cannot see where you're going at 180 miles an hour, and of course they can't really come in and change it in case it's deemed not to be a dangerous time. They take a penalty. So I think it is, as I said earlier on in the programme, it's giving drivers...
Brakes. We are OK, but we need to look after them. We think JV is stopping before you, so you should be OK still.
OK, that's Sato being told, look, your brake wear's high enough, just steady up a little bit. And Button is stopping, but your teammate is stopping for you, so you'll be able to leapfrog him if you're running a bit longer. That's the message that Sato was getting there from his engineer.
Yeah, look after the brakes is the message. Then second stop of the afternoon for Mark Webber, was running in third place. Raikkonen also pits, and they'll be getting rid of that piece of bodywork. Let's have a look. Camera's on the wrong side. There we go. Look at him. Well, from the way they had to hoik it out, I wonder if it was a piece of his own bodywork. The radiator now unobscured. And a lengthy but decent stop by the McLaren team. Raikkonen back out in the race, but Michael Schumacher will have got past him. Bear in mind, though, Schumacher has to stop again as well. That's Ralf Schumacher, who was in 15th place, that Raikkonen is rejoining in front of. Into the pits comes Jacques Villeneuve, and that's great news for the 2 BARs of Jenson Button and Takuma Sato, who were stuck up behind him.
Yeah, it's more like a stop at a gas station on the side of the road, isn't it? Top it up with fuel and just clean out, you clean your windscreen, they're just cleaning out the side pods. The Red Bull team ready then. Klein stopped first last time around, so you would expect it will be him again. Coulthard's still in second place. It's Barrichello up behind him now because Mark Webber has pitted for Williams. I didn't see that, I don't know if you did, James, but Webber has pitted. So Fisichella leads from Coulthard, Barrichello, Montoya.
Yes, indeed. Well, we did see it briefly, and there is Button now. No Villeneuve to contend with, but he's having a nibble at Jarno Trulli, who looks slow at this stage of the Grand Prix. Villeneuve goes to the outside, into the fast chicane, turn 10, turn 11. Where can he have a go? Possibly down into 13 if he gets himself tight up. Here he goes, down into turn 13. Trulli tries to come across, but Button takes the pass. And, well, Button certainly much faster than Jarno Trulli at this stage of the Grand Prix. The Toyota, which was running comfortably in second place in the opening phase of this Grand Prix, has lost its pace completely. And Jarno Trulli is, well, he's had his second pit stop of the afternoon. Jenson Button has yet to make his, so I'm sure that's got something to do with it.
And Sato pitted. Sato, although we heard on the radio he was pitting after Jenson Button, they have clearly swapped that around and brought him in early.
I wonder whether that message was for Jenson. They were saying JV is pitting before you, because it was Jacques Villeneuve in front of him on the racetrack. So I wonder whether it was a message for Jenson, just saying, look after your brakes, possibly.
It could have been, sorry, I thought it said JB, but anyway. I think you could well be right, James, because that's not making sense now from how I thought I heard the radio call.
All this corporate speak with initials. I wish they'd use proper names. It'd be much clearer for us, wouldn't it? Fisichella leading then. 16 to go here at Albert Park. He's got to make another stop. So has David Coulthard, Barrichello, Montoya and Alonso. Top 5 all have to stop again. Mark Webber in 6th has made his second stop, and Michael Schumacher is in 7th. We believe he has to, well, we know he has to stop again as well. Christian Klein also making it a good day for Red Bull. He's still on for a point at the moment in 8th place, and he has made his second stop of the afternoon. So can he push a little bit in the final stages of this race?
Coulthard has to push super hard now if he wants this 2nd or 3rd place finished this afternoon. We've got Barrichello, Montoya and a flying Alonso. He's in the 125s. The leader's in the 127s. Alonso clearly and easily the fastest man on the racetrack. And what's going on here? That is Webber then, having made his pit stop, fending off Michael Schumacher, who's yet to make his 2nd stop and maintains track position.
Now, one of the interesting challenges the technical guys were telling me about as we look at this replay, Schumacher coming up on the back of Webber.
But why that's important for Coulthard is that Webber's having a scruffy outlap, which will give him a touch of breathing space. Ted has some news for us.
Jenson Button very slow away from his pit stop, very slow, and I tell you what, the rear tyres were almost bald, and I'm pretty sure that the guys have taken a bit of pressure, Martin, out of those rear tyres. Oversteer been a bit of a problem for Jenson, but let's see if he can stay ahead of Villeneuve now.
And this, I think, is where it's going to really be tricky for the drivers. The tyres lose temperature coming into the pits quite quickly, and because the rubber depth has gone down, they don't heat up anything like as fast. It's the rubber moving about that generates a lot of the heat, the 100 degrees centigrade needed to make these tyres function properly. Coulthard pits.
Now, hang on again, something significant's happened here. The race leader has pitted, Giancarlo Fisichella, while Ted was telling us about Jenson Button. Fisichella pitted and rejoined behind Rubens Barrichello. He now leads this Grand Prix. Fernando Alonso in the 2nd Renault, yet to make his stop, is behind Fisichella, right behind him on the racetrack, as Michael Schumacher dives into the pits. Also in the pits is David Coulthard. And once again, we're not seeing that stop. And Juan Montoya from 4th and 5th then. Coulthard and Montoya come in. And this is crucial for Coulthard now because Alonso and Barrichello were closing up on him before this round of stops.
Schumacher clears in front of Nick Heidfeld, and he's also then in front of Kimi Räikkönen too. So it's working out quite nicely for Michael. Oh, what we need, that's going to end up in contact. It had to happen because Heidfeld was never going to slow the car down. Michael Schumacher is out of the Grand Prix, and so is Nick Heidfeld. So Heidfeld just ended up running out of space. The two Germans, that one worked back at the Nürburgring, mate, but you could consider yourself in a dangerous position. Look, he's got his thinking cap on already, hasn't he? But switch it off like everybody else.
Get them to push you.
Get them to push you is the information that's coming through to Michael Schumacher. That was a very scruffy accident indeed, as race leader Rubens Barrichello comes into the pits. That means Alonso, who was in front of Fisichella after Fisichella's pit stop, is now the race leader. Alonso, though, still has to make a stop, and Fisichella is well placed then to pick up from that. Here's a look at how it happened.
Yeah, Michael just covered the bases on the inside. He tried to squeeze Nick Heidfeld, which put Heidfeld on the grass, and therefore no braking capacity. And I wonder if they'll have to put the safety car out here, because they've got... oh, Michael's got away, look. He has got himself out of the gravel trap. That's amazing. I just don't think he should be allowed to beckon marshals across the firing line. That's the famous turn 3. It just should not be allowed. And that's Michael's fault. He tried to squeeze Heidfeld and forced him into an inevitable incident.
Shades of Jerez 97 about that one. That was a very strange, the way the car came across to block the Williams. That was a very strange accident. Chris Dyer there on the Ferrari timing stand. He's Michael Schumacher's race engineer. He's an Aussie, so he's in his home turf. And well, last year he oversaw Schumacher to a totally dominant victory. This year it's been all about Michael being caught out by the poor conditions on Saturday in qualifying, having to qualify right at the very back of the grid. It's been difficult for him to fight his way through, and he's gone and collided with Nick Heidfeld in the Williams, and that is his goose well and truly cooked. He was running in 7th place at the time, but had one more stop to make, so it wasn't looking great for points anyway for Michael Schumacher. But anyway, he looks like he's on his way back to the pits. Alonso then still leading on lap 45. He's going to have to make his second and final stop of the afternoon any time now. Fisichella 4.5 seconds behind him as the world champion pits.
Some bits and pieces flapping around to the right rear of Michael's car. One of he's got suspension damage, so he's driving straight in the garage. And another reason why it's not reasonable to drag those marshals across the firing line. But his engine was still running. I think, strictly speaking, if he's deemed to be in a dangerous position, he can have assistance out of there. But I don't believe that should include dragging marshals out from behind the safety wall.
Well, he's won 4 of the last 5 Australian Grand Prix, but he is not going to win this one. Retirement for Michael Schumacher in Australia. Meanwhile, on the racetrack, Rubens Barrichello has jumped David Coulthard and Mark Webber. So Coulthard's second place that he was hoping for in this Grand Prix is in jeopardy, certainly, because Barrichello, as a result of the pit stops, has got in front of him. So the best that Coulthard can hope for here this afternoon is third. But this man, Fernando Alonso, who was leading until he came into the pits just now, he has got his designs on third place. It's going to be very close between him and Coulthard coming out of this pit stop, and to the end of the Grand Prix, it's going to be between the two of them. Here comes Alonso.
This is the really close one. Look, Barrichello's got Alonso too. So Coulthard will be back in 4th place then, and Webber 5th. That'll disappoint him when he sees that on his pit board, and he'll be wondering how that happened. But quite clearly, Ferrari had a super quick pit stop, and their lap times have been stellar too for Barrichello, and particularly, of course, Alonso.
Yeah, he was doing a very good job. Alonso wasn't able to do quite enough at the front to get himself in front of Barrichello at the stop, but it was Coulthard he really wanted to get in front of, and Webber. He managed to do that as well. So Barrichello and Alonso have jumped Coulthard and Webber. It's Fisichella still leading this Grand Prix, though, with just 12 laps to go. 11 laps to go in the 57-lap Australian Grand Prix. It was 58 laps, but after Kimi Raikkonen stalled on the line, the safety car, they did another parade lap and started the race, cut one off the race distance. That's why it says 57. If your season previews all tell you 58 and you're wondering what's going on, that is the reason. Who's winning? Giancarlo Fisichella, 11.5 seconds clear of Rubens Barrichello. There he is, just putting a lap on one of the Jordans. That's Thiago Montero, I believe, he's just put a lap on. There is Fernando Alonso, and the battle really now is between Barrichello and Alonso for who can finish second. At the moment, it's 2 seconds that Barrichello has in his pocket over Fernando Alonso. And really, Barrichello was absolutely magnificent in the run-up to the second round of pit stops. He overtook Coulthard and Webber, did a super job, managed to get in front of him, keep Alonso behind him as well. There is Coulthard, there is Webber. Coulthard 4th, Webber 5th. And there's Juan Montoya and Martin McLaren came into this race. Everybody was saying, what a great car, it's so fast. They're going to walk it. They were very unlucky in qualifying yesterday to be completely caught out by the weather. But on race day, they haven't really shown stellar pace, have they?
Not at all. They're second a lap off the pace, and you'd have to say Montoya, 23 seconds adrift. He's been in 47 laps. He's not really had any particular problems. I just wonder where Alonso would have been had he not been tapped up behind Villeneuve for so long. Yeah, I mean, I can relate. I can relate to that as a driver. So he's thinking.
Yes, you are P3, Fernando. P3. You're 2.1 seconds to Barrichello. Coulthard is 2.1 seconds behind you, and Webber is 2.1 seconds behind him.
Yeah, you may seem surprised to find out the drivers don't really know where they are, but he's just driving the wheels of that thing. He's been brilliant all afternoon. And of course, they've had pit stops. You don't see the other drivers' pit stops. You may be a lap or two adrift from them when that happened. And he thought he'd seen a Ferrari. Obviously, he thought he'd seen Barrett. Now he's gone wide. He needs to refocus on the racetrack. He just found out he's P3, and he is chasing that Ferrari in front of him. And his mind is now going, how did that happen? How did Barrichello end up in front of me? And Coulthard and Webber are thinking, how am I 4th and 5th? What have I done wrong?
Yeah, they have to watch the video afterwards. Some of them get on their private airplanes, certainly European races, get on their private planes, pop a VHS in and work out exactly how they got to where they got to. in the Grand Prix. And, well, Fernando Alonso now knows exactly where he is. We're looking at Fisichella, race leader by just over 11 seconds. And Alonso, I think, is going to want to do something about Barrichello, try and make it a Renault 1-2. Fisichella unhappy, I think, with the car in front of him not getting out of his way. He doesn't want to get too close to him and get too much heat. Is it a Sauber in front of him? I think it might be. I think it's Jacques Villeneuve in front. There he is, out of the way, goes Villeneuve. So that wasn't quite a thank you.
Don't do that, Fizzy. It's not going to get you anything more on the racetrack. It just takes your focus away. He's beginning to get a touch flustered because he's got Barrichello and Alonso really taking about a second a lap out of him. With 11.7 second lead, he knows he's got to get on with it, but he'll not gain 1 metre by waving his arms around. And there then is the scrap, second, third, fourth and fifth, all in the pit straight. Barrichello, Alonso, Coulthard and Webber.
And that little mistake we saw Alonso make into turn 1 cost him 0.3 of a second to Barrichello on that lap. Quite expensive, because he was reeling him in up to that point.
Get a look at this, though. Fisichella did a 1:29 on that lap, passing Villeneuve. Lost 3 seconds to Barrichello and Alonso. The gap now down to just 9.1. He was entitled to be upset.
He certainly was entitled to be upset. Here we look at Webber. He's not too happy either. Not sure who it is he's trying to lap. It's the Jordan of Thiago Monteiro. And he carves his way through. So Webber in 5th place puts a lap on Monteiro. Well, we've got 8 laps to go here in Albert Park, and we've got some good scraps brewing up in the closing stages. 7 laps to go in the Australian Grand Prix, the opening round of the 2005 Formula 1 World Championship. James Allen and Martin Brundle with you. It's been a fascinating Grand Prix. Giancarlo Fisichella has had control of it ever since, well, yesterday really, in qualifying, when he was the only driver to get a dry lap. He is leading at the moment by only 8 seconds, though, from Rubens Barrichello, with Fernando Alonso pushing hard in 3rd place.
You can use override twice.
Team radio a little bit quiet there. Couldn't quite hear what they were saying, but anyway, Barrichello is 2nd, Alonso is 3rd, Coulthard is 4th, Webber is 5th, Montoya 6th, Klein 7th, and Raikkonen in 8th place. It's been an afternoon of surprises. Cars we expected to be quick have not been quick. Cars we didn't expect to be quick, like David Coulthard's Red Bull Racing, for example, running constantly in 2nd place for most of the race until being hauled in by Barrichello and Alonso. But nevertheless, it's been a brilliant debut for the Red Bull Racing team, with Coulthard in 4th and Klein 7th. Where's Michael Schumacher? He crashed with Nick Heidfeld a few laps ago, trying to close the German down, his fellow German down. The McLarens have not shown the pace that they showed in testing coming into this event. Rubens Barrichello has shown his quality, kept a very cool head throughout and managed to pick off the cars in front of him. It's a super drive by Rubens Barrichello this afternoon. Fernando Alonso has been super aggressive in the last few laps, and it's not all over yet in the battle between himself and Rubens Barrichello. It's a new look Formula 1, and well, it's certainly different.
Villeneuve has not been particularly keen to yield, and he certainly wasn't on the way in there, was he, for Rubens Barrichello? Although he lets Rubens through now, and Alonso, who's just a 2.9 behind him, has got a face full of the Sauber. Ted has some more news for us.
Are from Renault to Alonso, and that's push for all you're worth. They think he can catch Barrichello. 1.9 seconds was the gap on the last lap. Let's see what it is now as they pass 1.6. That's better for him, and they think the Michelins are faster now. They believe, Renault, that Alonso can catch Rubens.
Good stuff. Let's see then. Fisichella leads by 6.8. Alonso to Barrichello. Alonso 1.6 down. Coulthard just slipping gently back, but only by a 1/10 or 2 per lap. He has 2.4 advantage over Webber. Webber being 5th. Montoya can't do anything about them. That's amazing. The McLaren is definitely slower at this stage. And little Klein there in the 2nd Red Bull, up in 7th, ahead of Raikkonen, and he's going to have Raikkonen all over him before the end of the Grand Prix, now that they've cleared that debris from the side of his car.
You've got to say it's a sweet moment for David Coulthard. He's driving beautifully. He's 4th in the Grand Prix, and he's lapping 1.2 seconds a lap faster than the McLaren he had to give up to Juan Montoya when he was dropped at the end of last season. That is sweet for Coulthard for sure. Of course, it's a long season, 19 Grand Prix this year, stretching out in front of us, including a new race at Turkey in Turkey in August, which we're all very much looking forward to. It's going to be a marathon haul of a championship, and it's not won on the first day, but certainly that's part of the reason Montoya's not going very quickly. Struggling. Look at the right front tyre of that McLaren. The marks on it certainly takes some stick today.
Now the Minardi drivers beginning to yield the racing line to the leaders. And it's Coulthard coming up to lap Villeneuve, the man he overtook off the line. And DC will be very keen indeed to clear that Sauber of Villeneuve, because he's got Mark Webber just 3 seconds behind him.
Yeah, this is a very strange afternoon for Villeneuve. I'd be very interested to hear what he has to say about his performance this afternoon. Has he got some sort of problem? I don't know. But he started 4th. He is now down in 14th. He's been lapped. He's about to be lapped by the 4th place man, David Coulthard, who started next door, just behind him on the grid. Meanwhile, his teammate, Felipe Massa, started at the very back and is 10th, 4 places in front of him. So I'm not sure what's going on with Jacques Villeneuve this afternoon.
But you don't always get the same blue flag service. That's the problem when you're not in a front-running car, although Villeneuve has had the blue flag waved at him. But yeah, and Coulthard having to take to the escape road there with the Minardi sort of loitering around on the turn in. And is Villeneuve understanding that the Red Bull is about to lap him? And he might be wondering, or talking to his team to say, hang on, am I racing this guy? He may be very surprised. I've been in the same situation in Tyrrells or Ligiers, where you're outperforming the car on a given day and you don't get the service from the marshals. Look how much that's cost Coulthard for Webber. Webber just behind him now.
That was expensive. That was Patrick Freysacker in the Minardi that they lapped, and that's the 4th time they've lapped him this afternoon in just 55 laps. So these Minardis are not very fast at all. Freysacker is 11 seconds a lap slower than the race leader at the moment. Now, fair enough, they've only just put the 2005 aerodynamic pack on that Minardi after a bit of a row with the FIA during the course of the weekend, and it must be very difficult for Freysacker to drive this car, never having tested it, but 11 seconds a lap, come on.
Coulthard's not getting a blue flag service to get Villeneuve out of the way. The last time the flag was waved at Villeneuve was over a minute ago, a minute and a half ago now, and that's costing him dearly. He lost 2 and a bit seconds on the previous lap. I don't think he'll be penalised for ducking into the escape road of the far chicane, because in fact it was pretty quick reactions there from DC with that Minardi sort of appearing to loiter out there on the turn-in point. But he's got to get past Jacques Villeneuve. In fact, the Red Bull team must surely be running down the pit lane saying, hey, come on, get on the radio to your guy. DC and Villeneuve, of course, great mates, but this is race afternoon, and mates don't count for anything if you think you're actually in competition with the other driver.
Well, we've just got 2 laps to go here at Albert Park. If any of these drivers have got anything left in their tyres, this is where they need to really push. There are some points to be got here. And those tyres, well, on that Renault, they look almost new, don't they? Absolutely sensational the way this Renault, the new R25 Renault, has managed those tyres. Fisichella has driven beautifully here this afternoon. This car designed by Tin Denchen, who we worked with at Brabham back in the early 90s. And, well, he's done a super job of designing this car. Apparently, it's very easy to set up. The mechanics love it. They can work on it very easily as well. The aerodynamics are sweet as a nut. It's managing its tyres beautifully. The engine's pumping out plenty of power, and they are certainly championship contenders in 2005. And what a great way to start with a 1 and 3 finish if they can keep going. Fisichella leading and Alonso in 3rd place. Hats off to the Renault boys at Enston.
Yeah, very much so. Both Red Bulls under pressure. Villeneuve has finally been given a blue flag to let him know Coulthard's coming up behind. Webber just a second adrift now, and just a bit further down the field, 7th place man Klein is now just 0.9 ahead of Kimi Raikkonen and losing about a second 2 per lap. So you've got to expect Raikkonen to be making a big charge in this final tour coming up. But, a bit of action then down the field. I don't think Alonso's given up on Barrichello yet either.
No, he took 0.4 of a second out of him on that last lap, but he needs something a bit more special. He's 1.2 behind Rubens Barrichello as they go into the final lap. I don't think Alonso's going to be able to do it unless Barrichello makes a terrible mistake or gets very badly held up. It looks like the podium will be Fisichella, Barrichello, Alonso. And how happy is David Coulthard going to be if he can just keep Mark Webber behind him. Fourth and fifth, Webber now less than a second behind the Red Bull Racing car.
Yeah, and they've dropped Montoya, so I suspect Montoya's running out of brakes. I doubt it's tyres. He's on the same, although he's on the softer Michelins, but it's the same Michelins as Webber. Coulthard chose the harder ones. I think Renault chose the softer ones, but hey, as you said, James, they look brand spanking new anyway.
Jenson Button, a little bit of a recovery from him. He's up into 11th place. Ralf Schumacher behind him in 12th. And there you can see the Michelin men and the Renault men up on the wall on this pit straight just below us here, waiting to welcome Giancarlo Fisichella home for his second career victory, and Fernando Alonso home in third place. A tremendous start to the championship for this team, and what a metronomic drive. Absolutely perfect from Giancarlo Fisichella. It was an open goal for him after the first qualifying session. He crosses the line now. Giancarlo Fisichella wins the Australian Grand Prix for Renault, his second victory in his 142nd race. Fantastic.
Bravo. Well done, mate, well done. Absolutely perfect race. Well done, brilliant.
He's going to be taking our job soon. Spot on, wasn't it?
He's got a lot to say.
Okay, mate, just remember we need to keep an eye on the engine.
That was really good. I'm really happy. Thank you to all of you.
We'll slot an H into that happy one of these days, but it's lovely to hear him, isn't it? Coulthard did finish fourth, so Fisichella from Barrichello, Alonso, two Renaults in the top three then on the podium. Coulthard fourth, two Red Bull Racings in the points. Webber fifth, solid drive from him. Montoya hung on for sixth, and Raikkonen did not pass clean for that seventh place. So two McLarens in the points, but not where we thought they'd be in sixth and eighth.
Absolutely not. Raikkonen starting from the pit lane, remember, having been pushed off the racetrack, stalling on the formation lap. Michael Schumacher not classified, only 3 cars not classified. Schumacher and Heidfeld collided with each other, and Christian Albers, we saw him retire earlier on in the Grand Prix. Well, Schumacher was looking for his 100th podium this afternoon with the Ferrari team. He hasn't got it. He's got 0 points on the board after the first race of the season. There's Flavio Briatore congratulating Pat Simmons, the tactical genius behind the Renault team. He's the man that makes the call on the tyres, sent Fisichella out on Saturday on dry tyres. That was really the platform for this victory.
Right, Button is pitted. He didn't cross the flag, I don't believe. That means he can have a penalty-free engine change, which will give him a fresh engine without a 10-place penalty for Malaysia. Because he's out of the point-scoring positions, it's the common-sense thing to do. Apparently, if that becomes systematic, the FIA will look at that. But Button was down in 11th. He may as well just take a fresh engine. So did Sato in the other BAR Honda. And in fact, they're the only two to pull that stunt.
Well, there was a little confusion going into this Grand Prix about whether you'd be able to change a single tyre if you needed to. In the end, we didn't need to, no one needed to do that. So the first experiment with making a set of tyres last a whole Grand Prix distance looks like it's been a success. That was a reasonably entertaining Grand Prix, and we've got a very, very happy winner in Giancarlo Fisichella. Just look at the top 10 there. Trulli slipping down, having been second place for most of the early part of the Grand Prix. Webber will make the Australians happy with matching his best result in Formula One. 5th place here on his BMW Williams debut. Button is shown classified 11th, but he's not a finisher in the sense that he didn't cross the line, so that's why they're going to try and put a new engine in. And you can see there Villeneuve going backwards really from the start. We qualified 4th. And they're the rookies as well. Carter-Cayen, Montero and Freisacker, all having been lapped. But, well, Carter-Cayen was 50 seconds up on his teammate Montero, who we saw having a few spins. So a good start to his Formula One career for the Indian Carter-Cayen.
Yeah, I think he's done a solid job, and I think both Toyota and Minardi drivers have done extremely well to hang on to their machinery through the afternoon. Albers dropped out, it looked like a transmission failure. Only 2 other retirements with Michael Schumacher and Nick Heidfeld, who tripped over each other down at turn 3. Beautiful drive from Giancarlo Fisichella, and obviously he was lucky yesterday with the weather. You can't say any more than that. I don't know how fast he could have gone. I think my driver of the day, though, is still Alonso, for keeping his head in the middle of in the middle of all of that action and losing so much time behind Villeneuve to end up being just 6.7 seconds off the lead. But to be fair to Giancarlo, he wasn't really pushed, was he?
Great pictures at the end of a terrific race for Giancarlo Fisichella. What a memorable day for him. He won a Grand Prix in Brazil. He thought he'd won. Remember, he was in the Parc Fermé, tossing his helmet up in the air, thinking, I've won it. They declared Raikkonen the winner. He wasn't given the winner's trophy until a couple of weeks later. This time, he does get to go up on the top step of the podium. Only his second career victory. But what an effort from Fernando Alonso. From 13th on the grid to finish third this afternoon. Deservedly Martin Brundle's driver of the day. Team principal of Renault, Flavio Briatore, is talking now with Ted Kravitz.
Well, let's just grab a word with Flavio. Flavio, you're walking very slowly. Aren't you going up the podium?
No, I send Pazzino's in the podium. I believe he deserves many years with us. He's done always very, very good job. I think he deserves it.
So what about Giancarlo Fisichella? You picked him up from Sauber. He was a bargain, and now look what he's done for you.
I think so was good, no? So
It wasn't bad, Flavio.
good volume.
What, volume?
Yeah.
And what about the car, the pace of the car this weekend? It's been pretty impressive.
I believe we have done everything perfect. Right qualify, right race, we controlled the race. I believe it was very good.
You think the championship's on the cards, Flav?
No, race by race, we need to relax. But let's see.
Well done, Flav.
This is an unusual racetrack, it has to be said. It's not typical of some of the tracks later on in terms of its layout and particular requirements, but they look like they've got the consistency, speed, and the drivers always had confidence, didn't they, through the weekend, whatever the conditions. That's some pretty transient racetrack conditions too, but Coulthard just missing out on the podium. He's going to have a wry smile on his face, isn't he? Outperforming the two McLarens, and he was faster. It wasn't about wet qualifying, he was playing faster.
Sweet moment for him. And there is Fisichella. Well, I talked to some of the Renault engineers last year at the end of the season. What do you think it's going to be like next year? And they said, well, I think Fisichella will be surprised how fast Alonso is in races. And we think that Alonso will be surprised how fast Fisichella is on a single lap. These two drivers, very, very well matched. They're going to push each other hard, and they've clearly got a car under them that can contest this year's World Championship. We've not seen the best Ferrari have got yet. Their new car not due out until possibly Bahrain, possibly Spain, the fifth race in this championship. So Rubens Barrichello, that's a good start to his campaign, and it looks like this championship is going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, and of course he's 8 points ahead of Michael Schumacher already. That only needs to unfold over the next couple of three races, and Michael will have to be playing the supporting role, which in fairness to Michael, he's always said he's prepared to do if that was the championship position.
Well, he has done it. He got out of the way of Irvine, didn't he, in 1999? Malaysian Grand Prix when Irvine was going for the title. But look at this, two young guys. Certainly Alonso is pretty young, still only 23 years of age. Fisichella 32, 9 years difference between them. But Fisichella always seems so young, doesn't he?
Yeah, I was just looking through my stats. You forget he's 32 years old, don't you? Fisichella started, this was his 142nd Grand Prix start. Pat Simmons has been very loyal to that team. Was there when it was called Benetton. And of course, some key people left. Rory Byrne, Ross Brawn went off to Ferrari. Pat stayed back and has stuck with it. And he'll be very, very satisfied to be up there today. And he was there, actually, they were Tolman before too.
To hearing that anthem for Ferrari as the winning constructor. Nice to hear it for the driver. Now the French anthem for Renault. A wonderful moment in any driver's career. Steve Prix, the Premier of the state of Victoria, where Melbourne is, presents the winner's trophy to Giancarlo Fisichella, and Pat Simmons, who was Michael Schumacher's race engineer those championship winning seasons of 94 and 95 as Benetton. As Martin said, very loyal servant to the team. He gets the Constructors' Trophy from the boss of Foster's. There's Ron Walker, who's done a lot for this race here in Melbourne, presenting the second place prize to Barrichello, and that was a great drive by him today.
So I wonder what Ron thought about the threat of Australia losing the right to hold international events that came out from the FIA yesterday. This was a good race. We didn't have those phases, those electric sort of moments unfolding as the tyres would change, but it did build to a nice crescendo.
It certainly did. The first win for Giancarlo Fisichella came at Jordan in the Brazilian Grand Prix, and it owed an awful lot to luck. This one, well, it owed something to luck as well, but it was in qualifying. In the race today, he's been absolutely perfect, and he thoroughly deserves it. The 2005 championship is off to a great start.
They will celebrate with Giancarlo Fisichella. He said he doesn't even like this circuit. Never on the podium, now on top, down under, on a magical day for Renault. A different sort of Grand Prix, wasn't it? Giancarlo Fisichella is a big winner here in Australia. We're going to talk to Mark Blundell and to Tony Jardine in just a moment. We're going to hear from the top three in the press conference as well, but just confirmation of the result. Fisichella, Giancarlo, numero uno in Oz. Barrichello, a steady drive from the Brazilian for Ferrari. Driver of the day, though, Fernando Alonso, 13th to 3rd. David Coulthard, a sensational debut for Red Bull. They had a wonderful reception here in the week, and they'll celebrate tonight as well. Webber, 5th, equals his best ever in his home race. Montoya on a quiet afternoon for Williams in 6th place. Klein, the second Red Bull driver home, and Kimi Räikkönen there. He started from the pit lane in 8th place for McLaren. Right, let's have a word with you two fellas. Now, first of all, what do you make of it? I mean, a really different spectacle for everybody, for us here, for the people who've got up and watched back home.
I think it's very refreshing. I don't know what Mark thinks, but this time last year, we'd had a Ferrari going away with a jaw dropping 2 seconds a lap ahead of everybody else, and we all went, how did they do that? So did the rest of the teams, and it was the dawning of the realization that they hadn't done enough work, and Ferrari went away. Yeah. This is just so different, and there were so many changes and so much different action going on with the new regulations. The biggest regulation changes since 1998, and I think it's made a big difference.
Mark, what about you, and how much do you feel that the monsoon that we had yesterday sort of decided the shape of the Grand Prix itself?
I think it changed the effect of the Grand Prix grid quite considerably, Jim, to be honest with you. But we've seen that in the past. It's not the new regulations to change that with the weather conditions, but a fantastic result. I mean, I'm just overly impressed with Fisichella, actually. I know that Martin said Alonso's his man, but that guy never put a foot wrong throughout the whole Grand Prix.
Okay, well, it has been Renault's day here, and they fully deserve all those celebrations. We're just seeing the start of what is going to be a very big party indeed. I'm delighted to say that that we're going to be joined here by Pat Simmons, who was up there on the podium. Pat, now you are a Renault man through and through. Take a deep breath. What does this day mean to you?
Oh, it means everything. I mean, fantastic result. We've had a good winter. It's been hard work, but we felt confident. But I must admit, you know, it was a strange qualifying session, and with Fernando down a little bit, I didn't think we'd get 2 on the podium. I was really hopeful for the win, but 2 on the podium, it really just crowns it. It's a great day for us.
You've stuck by Giancarlo Fisichella, haven't you? You've always had great faith in him. He's waited a very, very long time for this stage. It's the second time it's happened to him in 142 races, and the first time in Brazil was a little bit unsatisfactory anyway, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I think the only thing I can say is it won't be the last time. I think we're going to see a lot more of him this year.
Do you think this is really the sign of things to come from Renault? Do you now see yourself as genuine challengers to those big fellas, to the Ferraris?
Well, I think this time last year I said to you, you know, don't judge everything on the sample of one. We had a good race here last year. We've had a great race here this year, but, you know, it was strange circumstances. The McLarens didn't really get into it. It's going to be a lot closer, but I do feel we're going to be in with a shout right through the year.
Just a final one for you. You are a racing man through and through. What have you made of the different format, the different style of race we've had today?
Well, once again, you know, it's very easy to be critical of things and to make snap judgments. I think that you really need to see patterns develop. I quite like the idea of the single lap qualifying because, you know, it is something new. And now, you know, to get up early on Sunday morning and go and do it all again, it's a new skill.
Yeah. Looking
after the tyres, it's a new driver's skill. And I think we need to see how it develops over the year.
Out of 10, what would you give it?
Oh, today, 10.
I thought you might say that. Very well done indeed. I know you do enjoy the good days, don't you? Deserve this one. Thanks very much indeed. Okay, well, let's go and hear from, well, two Renault drivers in that press conference.
Giancarlo, when you last won a race, you weren't really able to celebrate at the moment. This one was very different.
Yeah, it's completely different. It's a great day for me. It's been a fantastic race. Honestly, I was quite conservative. I never push the limit. Just at the end when Rubens was catching me, I drove a little bit faster and I done a quick lap time. The car was great. It was a very good balance. The tire stays consistency from the beginning through the end. So we are really in a really good shape. It's the best start of my career, and to win the first race of the season, it's great. I'm really, really happy. I like to say thank you to all the mechanics, to all the Renault team.
Well, you mentioned tyres. Obviously, many new regulations for this new season. What were those last 20, 25 laps like when you weren't on new tyres and you were making those tyres last to the finish?
Honestly, because for the first part of the race, I was a bit conservative on the tyres. At the end, the car was still really, really good. In fact, in the last 5 or 4 laps, I did my best, my quickest time of the race. It was good. It was easy from the beginning to the end. I'm happy even because Fernando finished 3rd, which is a great result for the team.
Absolutely. We heard you on the radio just before the first stop. You're talking a little bit about the balance, no change necessary. You mentioned something about the steering. We couldn't really hear it that clearly.
There was a little bit of understeering, but it's better to have a bit of understeering than oversteering during the race. So I spoke with my engineer and I told him, don't touch anything. I'm happy to carry on like that.
Well done. Rubens, a fantastic drive from you from the midfield, right up there, long fuel stops like Fernando, and a lot of pressure from him at the end, but a great drive up to 2nd place.
No, I enjoy every second, and shows that Ferrari has no crisis. We are here, we're going to fight. We know that the teams have made a step up, but I want to really say congratulations to the team that put a good car together. It's only our still old car. The new car is going to come and give us even more pleasure. I'm really happy for the team. There's been a fantastic race, and the tires hold on very well. So I'm very proud of Bridgestone as well.
And a very busy race for you in terms of traffic.
Yes, absolutely. And there's new guys out there, and sometimes you have to give time for them to get the habit of Formula One, and sometimes they were in the middle, and you just you cannot say much. It's really the first race, but apart from that, it was okay.
Thank you, Rubens. Fernando, 13th on the grid, held up really for 17 laps behind Villeneuve. We saw a little bit of bodywork coming off your car at one moment. You set fastest lap and you got up to 3rd place, nearly catching Rubens on the line. A sensational day, underlining the supremacy of Renault.
Yeah, it has been a good weekend. I was always in the top 3, even in wet conditions on Saturday. And for sure the 13th place on the grid was not my real position of the potential of the car this weekend. So I knew that I should go through the slow people very quick. But I found Jacques for 17 laps with a very good fight. But I lost nearly 25 seconds to the podium finish. But anyway, I was confident to recover this time, and thanks to the team, to the balance of the car, to the pit stops that were fantastic again from the guys, and also from I think we have to say thanks to Michelin. We did a good job, and to have this type of tire with this consistency throughout the race is something really fun for the drivers, and you can push in any lap of the race and set the fastest lap at the end.
And was the car affected in any way by going off the road when you did?
No, well, I was 2 or 3 times in the grass because I knew that was important part of the race, these laps behind Jack, and I was really pushing very hard with maximum fuel load that we start probably. And it was difficult to drive, but no, the car was every lap quicker and I enjoy all race.
Fantastic. Giancarlo, turning back to you, obviously incredibly early days, but a dominant victory. How do you feel yourself in terms of 2005 and what you may be able to achieve this year?
I'm really confident for the rest of the season. I know we are just at the first race, but already we got a fantastic potential, and I felt that already the first time I drove that car in January, end of January. Already the first few laps, the car was quick, it was easy to drive it. So now we need just to working on it, carry on with the development, and try to win again.
These boys have won again today, big style.
Happy Mother's Day!
You're back with us right in the middle of the Renault celebrations at the Australian Grand Prix in Albert Park, Melbourne. Yep, happy Mother's Day to everybody back home. I'm sure you two want to say that as well, won't you, to your mums? But let's first of all have a look at the start of the Australian Grand Prix. David Coulthard got away very well indeed, didn't he? And so did the Renault, particularly Giancarlo Fisichella.
Well, we always knew the Renaults would be fast off the line. They were fast all season long last year. But I think DC's start was the most remarkable, and actually he just overcooked it slightly going into turn 1, but he got away with it. You just see, look, it comes up the inside, locks the tyre, and just that little bit of extra momentum just passes him underneath Webber. That's the situation there which he capitalised on. It put him into 3rd place, but I think a very clean start overall, and no other problems for anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, this was Villeneuve on the inside there, and he got passed by David Coulthard. A superb manoeuvre there. I mean, it's very close for me, as him being the driver of the day for me, because I thought Coulthard was great. He sorted the car out. He was under a lot of pressure, but he did a fabulous job.
Absolutely. I think we can have a word with David, who's had a super day here in Melbourne. He's talking to Ted.
He has indeed, Jim, had a super day here, David. And Christian was saying it could have been a podium, but really, is that a bit too much to ask?
Not today, no, absolutely not. I think I lost a lot of time in traffic. I hit a Minardi and I seemed to overtake about, I don't know, 6 Jordans out there. So we lost a lot of time in traffic, and with the incidents, you know, with Mark and with Rubens. So all it would have taken is track position, and then I could have held Alonso. But, you know, the reality is we were benefiting a lot from the unusual qualifying situation. That won't be the normal situation at other Grand Prix, but we have to be very happy that in Red Bull's first Grand Prix as owners, then both Chris and I were in the points.
It must be immensely pleasing. How do you feel personally inside? I mean, it's a lovely start, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great because, of course, a lot of people were giving their opinions that I should go off and do something else, and not that I do it for other people, but for a while there it wasn't certain whether it would be an opportunity, and Red Bull have given me that opportunity, and in return they get my commitment. And I dreamt there for a minute. You know, I could make it 61 times on the podium, and that will still be a dream. And I want to just do a professional job and enjoy myself. And the weekend I have enjoyed. I'm going to enjoy tonight, and that's what I want to do the whole season.
Just one final thing. Martin talked in the commentary about you two agonising over the decision actually to join a team like this. You know, new owners, not sure about how it's going to go. How do you feel now about the rest of the season with Red Bull?
Well, I think we did it the right way. You know, we drove the car first of all in Jerez before making a decision, rather than just signing a piece of paper and committing yourself and then regretting it afterwards. And I knew after that first test, when I worked with the guys, that they have all the ingredients to run at the front in a Formula One World Championship. They obviously just need the resources, investment, technology developed, and bring all those elements together. But the core of the team, the human side of it, is everything is there. So I have to thank the construction side of things back in Milton Keynes, because when I hit the Minardi, I thought my nose was going to fly off, but it all hung together. So well done to everyone back in Milton Keynes.
Very well done to you too.
He's entitled to feel happy with himself. He's won here twice, hasn't he, Tony? But he would derive an unbelievable satisfaction from what he's done here today.
I think so. He's just coming up to his 34th birthday. As you say, he's got 50 podiums. You know, he's got 13 Grand Prix wins. The reason why Red Bull Racing have hired him is because of all that experience. And we were saying earlier on, once he's out of those corporate shackles of McLaren, you know, you really see him perform. But in his debut for the team to take 4th place, I think is truly remarkable. And he showed it on the track. He showed great steel, great resolve. And none of the complaints that we've heard from DC in the past, oh, this was loose, that was loose. There he was out there doing it.
Out there doing it alongside Mark Webber at one stage in this Australian Grand Prix.
Yeah, it's a very interesting part of the race, this indeed. And I think actually DC just got snarled up behind a Minardi there. Nearly took him out of the race. I'm sure they'll be having words, but I think there'll be bigger words between Mark Webber and DC. They got squeezed out quite badly.
The other British driver expected great things here today. Doesn't often go that well in Melbourne, it has to be said. Only scored his first points here last year, and a little bit of a low-key performance from the BAR. Let's have a word with Jenson Button.
Jenson, not particularly outstanding start to the season, was it?
No, it's pretty bad, pretty awful race. The start was my fault, but you know, first of all I thought, God, we're really slow. You know, the car's not handling very well when I was behind Jack, but as soon as I got past him, second pit stop, the car was pretty good, low 26s, which I think is pretty quick. So yeah, losing 3 seconds a lap behind Jack didn't really help, but I couldn't get past him, and for some reason we pitted earlier than we should have, which didn't help us.
And I guess by then it was really too late to make much of an impression, even if you did have a bit more speed.
Yeah, I mean, Massa was 13 seconds, 14 seconds in front when I came out the pits, and I caught him up at the end, but well, you know, it's just it's not good enough, really.
You didn't take the checker flag. Just talk us through that.
We had a problem. The guys came on the radio. I don't know what it was, but you have to speak to the team about that.
Are you serious? Both BARs didn't take the checker flag. I would have thought that was a strategic decision that would enable you to change your engine for the next race.
We're told we had a problem and we stopped.
All right, thanks.
Disappointing then for Jenson Button and BAR. They will pick up, believe me, on that. Fernando Alonso, Martin's driver of the day. Jacques Villeneuve started high up the grid and it seemed to me held a few people back at one stage. There were bits flying off the car and things. Mark, what was happening there?
I think Jacques just had a terrible day. He just didn't really get it together. He didn't get it together all weekend long, did he? But you see the situation here. Alonso goes down the inside of him a little bit too deep, and actually Jacques managed to pull that spot back again. But Jacques was just getting himself in a few problems with a number of drivers as we're going on for the Grand Prix, and I'm sure a few people have a number of words of him. That's a 1997 world champion not really being up to scratch. Great part of this race here with the move there by Alonso. He definitely put it underneath him there in the correct way.
It's fair to say he's had a disappointing return to Formula One racing, hasn't he? Let's talk about the current world champion. Everybody will say, oh, well, Australian Grand Prix, I suppose Michael Schumacher won it, did he? He didn't. And he was down the back and he didn't score.
A lot of people will be very relieved. Of course, Michael Schumacher fans will be very upset. But that's what's given us a great start to this 2005 season. And we said yesterday, whatever happens, we really want Michael Schumacher to have to work for it this year. Mark Webber has just come out of his pit stop, and obviously the tyres are not quite warm enough. He gets offline, has Michael Schumacher behind him as well, and yet he defended his position from out wide and really held his own there. And Michael didn't really have anywhere to go.
And he didn't have anywhere to go when his race ended, when he was in collision with, as you have to put in the insurance forms, I believe, with Mr. Heidfeld.
Yeah, well, actually, I put it down to Michael Schumacher, that problem, because I think Michael actually saw Heidfeld coming down the side, made a little move on him, and blocked him, and put him on the grass. You know, you can't brake on the grass with a Formula One car. There's just no traction there. So I think Michael caused it. Look, just moves over on him, forces him on the grass. How are you going to stop the car? There's no grip there whatsoever. I think it's still amazing he got away as well.
Well, do you think there should be perhaps one or two things happening to Michael Schumacher after that? If you say it was totally down to him, should we see a bit of
Well, I think they need to address that. You know, but at the end of the day, he lost his result, and I think he will know when he goes home that he needs to think about it and review it.
And was this just a total one-off, Tony, or is this a sign of things to come, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, very difficult circumstances the first day of qualifying with the rain. You're disadvantaged to be pushed so far back. But I'd also question Michael Schumacher and getting pushed out of that situation. He was there for so long. And he did that at the Nürburgring after Juan Pablo Montoya tangled with him 2 years ago. And he got away with it because it was a quick start and he was in a dangerous position. There, in my opinion, he should have got out of the car and should have got the car out of the way. That was wrong.
Okay, more from BAR now. This man says they will improve this season. They haven't today. He's the boss, Nick Fry.
Nick, not a brilliant start to the season. I think fairly lacklustre race for the team, really.
I think that's a great description. Very lacklustre, very disappointing. Obviously, a bit of stuck in traffic and not a very good start, but there's no excuses. The car performance wasn't there, and we need to work on that.
Now, both cars failed to take the checkered flag. Just talk us through that one, because I've just spoken to Jensen. He tells me that he was told he had a problem and come in.
Yeah, well, our reading of the rule is that if you fail to finish, you have the opportunity to change your engine. And obviously, we wish to take advantage of that in that we can put new engines in the car and start Malaysia afresh and hopefully do better.
So it was then a strategic decision, really, to give you the best possible chance in Malaysia?
It was.
Christian Horner has seen both cars score here today, but you're not satisfied.
I mean, it was a fantastic debut race for Red Bull Racing, and I mean, David drove an unbelievable race for us today. You know, the guys in the pit stops turned the car around, you know, tremendously well. You know, he made a great start. We got up to second, jumped truly. Thought we were going to be able to contain the Ferrari and Alonso, but you know, to finish fourth on merit. And, you know, to have Christian up there in seventh as well is just a fantastic result for the team.
It's a phenomenal performance. The reason I said you're not satisfied, you were whispering that word podium in my ear before we joined you.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been great, you know, to have held on to that. But, you know, with no retirements today, you know, to be up there on merit, you know, if you'd have said to me on the plane on the way out here, you'll be fourth and seventh, I'd have taken that.
A magnificent start, though. Have you surprised yourselves a bit here? Because you'll have surprised a lot of people in the F1 world.
Well, we've had a good, you know, pre-season testing. You know, Red Bull, you know, are here to compete, and you know, we've put some solid foundations down today.
Just a word on the new style of race we saw here today from you. What do you think of it?
I thought it was a good race. You know, from our point of view, it was excellent. You know, it was good to see not a Ferrari running away at the front, and yeah, I thought it was a pretty good event.
Well done, Christian. Very good start for you. We'll see you in Malaysia.
Thanks very much. Look forward to it.
Okay. Not such a happy fellow, I don't think, will be this man. Team boss at McLaren, Ron Dennis.
Well, Ron, after qualifying, it was never going to be easy, but did you ever think it would be that difficult?
Yeah, it's character-building stuff, you know. Really threw away second place. I don't know if it was on television, but Juan Pablo went off, and you know, obviously, two things happened. He got his tyres very dirty, and of course they cooled then. So he struggled for grip thereafter, and you're faced with engine conservation. You're thinking, you know, do you push hard and try and get somewhere? So, you know, really, he threw a second place away, and then it was a matter of looking after the engine. And Kimi just stalled. Painful, as these things happen. His fastest lap was set without a deflector, which is pretty impressive. I mean, we have the pace to win, so just got to sort of grin and bear it. But it's not the way to go motor racing.
Do you think that's Juan Pablo just trying too hard in his sort of typical fashion? Does he need to learn a bit about how to race these new rules with one set of tyres?
Well, I mean, you know, you could never criticise a driver that tries hard, and you know, we all make mistakes. I think it's just that the penalty you pay for a mistake now is severe. The moment that you get your tyres dirty, you know, the temperature drops so quick, and it takes a long time to get it back in, you know, and it's just a bit frustrating. But I mean, you know, as always, it is the same for everybody, except that, you know, when you've got these quirky qualifying wrecks, they and the weather that we had, it just heavily distorts the outcome, but yeah, maybe that was the intention.
Just a quick word for an old pal of yours, David Coulthard, finishing fourth in still a very young team. I mean, what did you make of that?
Well, it's a young team, but the car's been under development since May, so you know, he had a good drive and did a good job. It's good for him. I'm happy for his fourth place. Let's just say that the only people in front of us that you know, that have concerned us as regards pace at the Renaults, and of course that gives them a good start in the Constructors' Championship, but there's a long way to go yet.
Just very quickly sum it up for us. One word.
Unbelievable.
Different.
Lovely. Thanks to you both. Fantastic. Let me just promote